Hey guys, welcome back. We're here in the Galar region, talking today about my thoughts and opinions on all the Galar Pokemon. Say hi to Atlas, everyone. She likes seeing you guys. I'm not usually here in Galar. I'm usually here in Paldea, or anywhere else other than Sword and Shield. But yeah, today we're gonna be covering the Galar Pokemon, and I'm gonna find a nice place to sit here. Just gonna keep strolling around. I forget what the city's called. I should just look at the name, but I'm too lazy to do that. We're just gonna headcanon that it's like, I don't know, Sydney, Australia? That seems like a nice city. See, look at that waterfront. That's a nice waterfront. Anyway, yeah, I should probably explain why I'm going through the Galar Pokemon right now. So basically, I wanted to be able to cover my thoughts and opinions on every Pokemon ever. That's kind of my extended goal anyway. So far, I've covered the Sinnoh Pokemon, and then the Hisui Pokemon, and then the Paldean Pokemon, and I try to do it in relevance to like what's out. But as a longer project, I wanted to cover all of them eventually, but I didn't want to start with Kanto because I feel like that's too obvious, so I wanted to go backwards from Gen 9. So I figured, hey, let's go to Gen 8. It's been a bit, the Pokemon have simmered. I think I'm able to articulate my thoughts on them more given time has passed and hype has died down. Some Pokemon have rose up in my love for them, and some Pokemon have really dropped down. So I think it'd be interesting to compare and see where we are at with the Galar Pokemon. Also, I'm going to be comparing the regional forms today. I'm pretty sure I got all of them all. I had to make my own little spliced Pokedex because it was really hard finding evolutions and then finding the regional mons because obviously, for example, like Meowth wouldn't be listed in the Galar Pokedex. You instead have to find Berserker and then be like, oh yeah, Meowth would go before this. Either way, I digress. Let's jump on in, shall we? Starting with good old Grookey, and man, you know, it's sad. I actually didn't want to start the list with a negative opinion, but I'm just gonna address the Copper Raja in the room, if you will. I do not really like the Galar starters, and in my first video on the channel, actually, crazy enough, it's been that long, I was initially very receptive to the Galar starters. Like, I really liked what I saw, but I think it was kind of more of just like the hype of the moment was getting to me, and honestly, the Galar starters just aren't my favorite at all. I think they're kind of some of the worst ones in the series, and the thing is that it's definitely not a case of like, I just don't like the new stuff, because I actually really like the Paldean starters, but the Galar starters I'm just not as into. I mean, it's confusing. I'm gonna be able to explain my reasoning with every single one, but we'll get to that. So Grookey was kind of the one that I actually initially really liked. I was actually going to go for Grookey, but after a few months of the news dropping and I was able to sort of think on it more, I didn't end up going with Grookey. In fact, I didn't end up going with any of the Galar starters. When I got the game, I just boxed Grookey on my first vanilla playthrough. It was mean to do, but that is what I did. I'm not a big Grookey guy. I don't know, just something about Grookey, just, I don't know, something about it. I don't know, I can't say it doesn't do enough, because it is a neat little design, and there is, you know, there's quite a few colors, there's a little cool thing with the stick in its head, or hair, whatever that is. Either way, I don't know, Grookey just doesn't land for me. And, I don't even remember what this one's called. I mean, I know this is like a newer game, but whoa, it's pretty bad when I don't remember what a Pokemon's even called. What's this one called? This one's called Thwackey. I mean, if you like Grookey, I will say, like, Thwackey carries that energy very well. It looks like just a natural extension of Grookey. For that reason, I'm not a fan. Because, you know, I just don't like Grookey. By extension, means I don't like Thwackey either. And then there's Rillaboom. You know, I don't despise Rillaboom. I don't think it's that great, but I don't think he's that bad either. I think he's got a fun design because he's like a big gorilla man, and he's got like the big, almost like Super Saiyan hair style with like the bush in his head. And I don't know, he is kind of neat. I do love his drums. I think that gives him a very fun little character, and I like his animations with the drums. I think he's fine, honestly. I think he's fine ultimately. He's not my favorite. It's not my least favorite. He's just kind of there, but I don't hate him or anything. I think he's fun enough. And also, I'm gonna be trying to toss in the Gigantamax forms if I can remember them. It's gonna be kind of hard because I would have to like compare some of the Kanto ones because they got Gigantamax forms, but I'll probably do that if I do get the Kanto, which will be very interesting because that means I'm gonna have to cover Gigantamax, Mega Evolution, whatever gimmick Game Freak decides to give new forms to. Anyway, Yeah, Gigantamax Rillaboom. This one never really did it for me. I mean, it's interesting because the Galar starters, Gigantamax forms, they're more about creating big set pieces rather than actually making them gigantic. And I actually kind of like that as a theme. Like, it's not so much they're becoming giant kaiju monsters, it's just the items they have are becoming giant. And I think that's actually very cool. I sort of wish they went more on that. These Pokemon do get bigger in some aspects, just not like gigantic. Either way, having a whole giant rock concert with drums is pretty neat, but it's not my favorite of the three. Not really much else to say about Rillaboom. I'm probably stretching at this point. Let's move on. Scorbunny. Oh man, I have like entirely shifted my opinion on Scorbunny. Scorbunny, I actually kind of like Scorbunny now, but specifically Scorbunny. I don't know what it is. When I first saw it, I was like, no, not for me, not for me. I get why people would like it, but it's not for me. Also, I will admit it was probably in retaliation to Game Freak because Game Freak really choreographs who they want the fan favorite to be sometimes. And it's kind of funny because you could kind of jot it down to whoever gets the Protean Libero ability is kind of the one they really want to be the fan favorite. And it seems like Scorbunny was the one they were really building up, especially because I think in early Sword and Shield, people were analyzing the animations and Scorbunny easily had the most character. And it was just very easy to see that that was the one. It's like, oh, Ash is going to get this one, you know, it's going to be super popular. But honestly, you know what? Scorbunny does do it for me. I think he's a pretty neat little fire starter. Very, very unique fire starter, in fact. I kind of like that there's not like a fire tail or anything like that. He's just a little fire bunny. And the animations are cute. I love his little run, and I love the little like size of him. He's very plushable. He's really, really grown on me. And the more time since Sword and Shield has come out, the more I ended up liking Scorbunny. So I'm actually debating doing a playthrough with Scorbunny one of these days. That being said, it's probably like a no evolve playthrough because we're gonna get to Raboot here. And I feel so bad because I actually really like Raboot, or I would have really liked Raboot because I love the expression, I love the color. He's a fun little guy. But man, I just don't like the clothing. It is straight up wearing a hoodie, and I don't like that. It looks very uncanny. It looks like I'm looking at like a YouTuber that put a Raboot in clothes and called it a day. I think that's fine when that happens, but for this, it just looks very uncanny. I know they're trying to make it like it's supposed to be like fur, and that's just how the fur is colored to resemble a hoodie, but no, it's too human-like. You've done that before with certain Pokemon like Scrafty and such, and it blends into their designs pretty well because you could easily see it's like, oh yeah, that's part of their fur or skin or whatever. But Raboot, it's just wearing a hoodie, like literally, and it has like, it could put the hands in the pockets, and it's like, I don't know. Again, I want to like Raboot, but it's too human-like, and I don't like that. Not to mention, it's kind of weird because it doesn't even look like a step up from Scorbunny. Usually middle evolutions look like they at least matured from the first stage, but Raboot looks like it could have been a first stage again. Like seriously, shrink it down, you have like a first stage. Raboot, the Pokemon that I should like, but I don't. Cinderace, I've never liked this thing. I'm sorry to the Cinderace fans. Now, I gotta say, its animations are pretty fire. They are really cool. Pyroball and all the little like kicks it does. It's very fun, and I love the cry too, but Cinderace has never done it for me. It just, something about it, I've never really liked it. Its design doesn't really work for me. The whole like gimmick doesn't really work for me. Again, the retaliation factor where it's just like, no, Game Freak, I will not like this as the fan favorite, get out of my face kind of thing. The fact that it gets Libero, it feels just so manipulative in a way, and I kind of feel like it doesn't really deserve it that much. It doesn't do enough. It's not that interesting. If you like Cinderace, all the power to you, but it's never really done it for me. Gigantamax Cinderace is kind of fun for what it is. I do love that the Pyroball has just become a massive fireball for it to stand on. That's really fun. And the animation of it kicking it is really fun too. The giant ears actually add a lot of flavor to Cinderace's design. From what I understand, the other two Gigantamax forms colors for the starters don't really alter the designs too much, but this one gives Cinderace giant ears, and I do think that's kind of fun. So, yeah, it's a decent Gigantamax form, I think. Sobble. I'm sorry, I know that there are Sobble fans out there who watch the channel, so avert your gaze or ears or whatever. I'm not a big Sobble guy. I've never really been, and as someone who loves, like, lizard Pokemon and stuff like that, you know, the reptiles, it's kind of bad when I don't like Sobble. I don't know, just something about Sobble looks very plain. I've never been able to pin it down why I don't like Sobble that much. It feels like it's not awkward enough to be Froakie, but it's not daring enough to be Poplio. It's in this weird place where it doesn't have any of it, and it just feels very basic. So, I don't know, just Sobble's weird. I've never really cared for Sobble, and they tried to give a character, but I don't know, never really cared for Sobble. I think his animation when he moves is very cute. I think there's a lot of character there, but Sobble just kind of feels a tad unfinished, and I wish he kind of got a little bit more time in the oven before being finalized as a design. Yeah, it doesn't really do it for me. Oh shoot, here's another one. I don't know the Sobble evolution name. Drizzile. Wow, I actually, even just hearing the name, I'm like, that's its name? Huh. Anyway, Drizzile. Again, it kind of feels like the poor man's Frogadier or something. I don't know. Doesn't really do it for me. It's kind of funny too, because I like this like weird, like Hot Topic lizard design they got going here, but I don't know. It's not striking enough. I do appreciate the colors are a bit more daring than Sobble. I like the green and the purple. I think that's kind of a cool color to add to Drizzile here. Doesn't do enough. Maybe it's too lanky. I don't know. Because this design gets very lanky, as you see with, and this is a great transition, Inteleon. Oh, again, I feel bad that I'm just being so negative out of the gate, but I really don't like Inteleon. I've never cared for this thing. And again, it's so crazy because all the cards are in the hands of Inteleon for me to like it, because it's a lizard, so that's a thing. It reminds me of a character called Dimitri from Sly Cooper. I love him, and I still don't like Inteleon, even though he reminds me of him. And he's also a reference to James Bond. Like, they made a James Bond Pokemon, and you would think, just from that alone, I would love this Pokemon, because I'm actually a huge James Bond fan. I never talk about it on the channel, but I'm a huge James Bond fan. I don't know why I don't like Inteleon. I think again, it's too lanky. I think they should have made it a little bit more full. It looks like a stick. And yeah, it just doesn't really do much for me. I never really care for the animations. It looks a bit too human-y. That might be it too. It's a bit more humanoid. Snipe Shot is kind of lame. Like, I don't know, something about it. It's too simple. Like, it kind of just looks like Water Gun. And I'm like, really? That's the signature move? I know they tried to make it a thing that's like he's using like a pistol. And hey, that would have been cool. But it needed a little bit more time. Again, this whole line, I think, needed a bit more time in development. This kind of looks more like concept art for like a Pokemon rather than the final design. So that's kind of, it kind of gives me the Bax Caliber vibes a little bit, where it's like, this just needed a bit more time. You could have had something really cool, you know? That being said, I think Inteleon might be my favorite Gigantamax form of the three starters. I think it's actually really cool how he essentially gets a sniper nest, and he gets like a sniper gun made out of water? Like, what? I'm actually kind of surprised they were able to finalize this design and like get it past censors, because, you know, people get so sensitive about that. It's super cool. And the animation is sick too when he fires it off. Like, that is what I wanted Snipe Shot to be from the get-go. So yeah, Gigantamax Inteleon does it for me. It really does. And it was cool too, because I love the memes that happened when this came out too. Like Inteleon aiming the gun. There was some pretty good stuff. So I'm actually pretty warm to the Gigantamax form. I would say it's probably like Inteleon at his best, actually. Oh, thank God we're out of the Galar starters. Okay. Whew. Okay, we got past that. I think this is Skwovet. I think it's fine. I think it's perfectly fine. I think it's a first route rodent Pokemon, and I think he's perfectly fine. He's cute. He's a little squirrel. I think he's fine. There's not really much else to say about Skwovet. honestly. But Greedent is when I actually think this Pokemon's a bit more interesting. Now, I do feel weird because I don't think I really like it that much, but I do love the energy of it. It's so, I don't know, it has character, man. Like, I love how this thing shows up. I'm trying to remember, in Sword and Shield, aren't there like berry trees and then it could attack you or something like that? I love that. I love that this Pokemon just hoards berries and he's just he's a little shyster, you know? And it's just like, oh man, you gotta be like that, taking all the berries, screw you, man. His design is annoying. And it feels like kind of a callback to Bidoof. Like, this thing gives me such Bidoof and Bibarel energy. I like that. I actually kind of like that. So, you know what, Greedent, you could stay. I think you're a really fun little Route 1 rodent or whatever. Actually, can you catch Greedent? Oh yeah, you totally can. Yeah, I just said you find them in berry trees. Anyway. Rookidee. Okay, yeah, so it's actually really funny because I came to this conclusion like months ago when I really thought about it, and a lot of people seem to agree that Rookidee is the real starter of the Galar region just because of like the utility of the line and how early you can get Rookidee too. I guess let's just go through it now. So Rookidee's the Route 1 bird, and I like him. He's cute. He's a little pudgy bird. Little circular pudgy bird that's spherical. I think it's a very, very cute design. I love the eyes. And yeah, I don't know, Rookidee's a little cutie. I like him a lot. I will say though, and this is gonna come across as kind of weird, I don't like that he's pure flying. It feels a little random. He's one of the only pure flying types in the game, because I believe pure flying was only owned by like Tornadus. But the thing is that like being like a flying deity or something, that makes sense that it's like a pure flying type. But it's just weird because like every other bird was like normal flying, which was weird, but you already set that as a trend. It just kind of feels weird that this thing is just flat out flying type. It almost feels like an oversight. It's like the only time that I would want a Pokemon to have normal type added to them just to keep consistency. And it's not like it keeps it. I don't know. It's kind of a weird nitpick, but I feel that way. Corvisquire is actually pretty sick. I don't remember spending a whole lot of time with this guy, but I guess I did have a Corviknight, so I guess I must have. I don't know. But yeah, Corvisquire is actually pretty sick. I love how it does have that great mix of Corviknight energy and Rookidee energy. Has like the Rookidee eyes, but then has like more the edginess of Corviknight. He's a great middle stage. And also that like name too, Corvisquire. That is a pretty cool name, not gonna lie. I don't think this thing is Steel type yet, but he really does it for me. One thing that's actually really cool too is that I love shiny Corviknight, and the shiny for Corvisquire looks like shiny Corviknight. They actually gave him kind of the gray. And that's actually pretty cool because Rookidee starts off like yellow, and then you'd think this thing would be yellow too, but no, it turns gray like Corviknight, and I actually think that's kind of cool. Corviknight, oh my gosh. One of the coolest Galarian Pokemon. This thing completely lands, man. A steel flying type that has like metal armor on it, and he looks so dang cool, and he's called Corviknight. It's just like, man, this thing was meant to be like beloved. He's so rad, man. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Corviknight. I also love like all the lore they've given to Corviknight over time. There's like a whole taxi system in Galar that involves Corviknight, and there's also the weird Tinkaton versus Corviknight rivalry thing going on. Like, Corviknight has a lot going on, oddly enough. Yeah, Corviknight completely lands for me. Again, like, one of the reasons why I think it's, like, the true starter of Galar, quote-unquote, is because, like, you get it as Rookidee very early on. And Corviknight, it never really loses utility. Like, it's always good. Steel Flying is a very good type combination, and it always feels like it can be relevant. Like, you can have Corviknight on your endgame team and no one would bat an eye. Like, you could argue Pidgeot and, like, Noctowl or Swellow. It's like they kind of drop off, unfortunately. But Corviknight is there all the way through, and I think that's so dang cool, man. I've heard people critique the shiny, because the shiny just kind of becomes gray and black, and this thing just has a really cool sleek black design. But dang, man, shiny Corviknight is so rad. The gray is just so cool, and I love my boy. I love him. Became one of my signature Pokemon in this game, actually. I can only sing its praises enough. It's really, really rad. Gigantamax Corviknight hits too. You could say it's like simple. Like it really is. It really is a simple Gigantamax. Like it just spreads its wings and then it gets like a kind of like red trimming, but I think it's cool enough. It does its job. One cool thing is that I love how the shiny gets like gold trimming instead of red. Makes it look really cool. Gotta say, Corviknight's awesome. Blipbug. I totally didn't look up the name before this. Actually, I did know his name was Blipbug, but I wanted to make sure before I said something improper. Either way, Blipbug, as a first bug type you meet in the game, he's very striking. He's very striking. I won't deny it though. I do think the second and third evolutions carry this Pokemon. The first one's just kind of like the one you got to get out of the way. You know, it's like, all right, we got to get through the first stage and we can get to the actually interesting ones. But I think he's striking enough. And honestly, I think that's the best you can ask for a first route bug. Like, a lot of times they don't really look that iconic or anything, but Blipbug, you see it and you're like, oh yeah, what is that thing? Like, that's a very interesting color and like the eyes and stuff. Yeah, it does enough. It does enough. Dottler. Wait, is it Dottler or Dottler? I think it's Dottler. Either way, Dottler here is pretty neat. I think the official art doesn't really do it justice because in-game it actually shines based on the little dots on it. And I think that adds a lot of character because it makes this thing feel like it's not really the average bug type. There's something a little more going on here. And I think he's pretty cute. I love his little stubby legs. I love his little eyes. Yeah, I think Dottler does just enough. Just enough. And especially when you consider what most second stage early bug types usually look like, this thing is kind of a step up, honestly. And I never realized it. Is this supposed to be like the metamorphosis kind of point to it where, you know, it goes into the cocoon? Is that what it's doing? I actually didn't realize that. Huh, maybe. Yo, Orbeetle is sick. Orbeetle is really sick. I love how they just made a UFO bug Pokemon that's like bug psychic. Like, it's so fascinating. This is just such a fascinating Pokemon. The animations look cool. I love how oddly sinister this thing looks. I don't know. It does it for me. Like, that is a really cool bug type. And yeah, it's supposed to be like a ladybug too. I gotta say, I think this thing's way better than Ladybug and Ladian. If we take nostalgia out, like, I think it lands a lot better than Ladybug Ladian. So yeah, I don't know. Orbeetle's just really cool. It's one of the better early route bug types that are in the games. Because, I mean, look at the ones we had to deal with prior to this. And I know nostalgia's gonna be a huge factor, but it's just like Butterfree, Beedrill, Beautifly. Just a lot of these like bug flying types that aren't really that good. I mean, I love Burmy, but come on, Mothim, like, what are we doing here? But then you start getting to like Vikavolt and Orbeetle, and it's like, oh, these are starting to get sick. I think that's kind of why Paldea sort of falls off for me, because Lokix and I think it's Tarantula, I think? I'm trying to remember the evolution. Oh, Spidops. They don't do enough, and they're not that good. But yeah, Orbeetle, ooh, he is cool. He is cool. I've never done a playthrough with Orbeetle, but like, it's like right there. If I did another playthrough of Sword and Shield Vanilla, I would totally go for Orbeetle. Also, might have my favorite Gigantamax form. I don't know, I'd have to cross-compare between all the Gigantamax forms, but dang, that thing is cool. I just love it because this thing is supposed to look like a UFO, right? It's supposed to look like an alien. Well, the Gigantamax is just like, all right, let's throw subtlety out the window. Let's just actually make it a UFO. And it just hits so much. It looks so dang cool, man. And the animation makes it look like it's like beaming you up. This is Gigantamax at its best, to be frank. Like, it utilizes the size and it gives it a unique kind of animation. It kind of plays with the theme a little bit. Like, this is how Gigantamax is supposed to be, in my opinion. Like, you couldn't shrink this down and call it a form of Orbeetle. It needs the size. Yeah, Orbeetle's sick. I really like him. Nickit. Yeah. I really wanted to like Nickit because I played Pokemon Sword and Shield kind of blind. I mean, I guess full disclosure, I didn't get the game immediately. I waited and, you know, because I was kind of trying to boycott it, but then eventually I succumbed to the pressure, mostly because of Phalanx, but we'll get to him. And I didn't know about Nickit So when I played it, I saw this little fox, and he was like a little dark type, and I'm like, okay, we could deal with that. I don't know if I was anticipating it to become like a awesome 3-stage mon or what, but I thought this thing was gonna be cool, and it doesn't land, man. It's kind of weird too, because like with how cute this thing is, you would think it would be like more remembered, but no one talks about Nickit ever. Like to the point where you don't even hear its name. Like I kind of forget that this thing exists. And it's sad because I tried this thing for a bit and then I realized I'm like, oh, it's not that good. So I guess I should have figured. I mean, early route dark type can go one of two ways, and sure enough, this went the way of Mightyena. Also, I think it kind of sucks because they also make Galarian Zigzagoon in this game, and that's just a way more effective dark type early route mon. So I don't know why Nickit is a thing. They probably should have just waited, honestly. Thievul! This was, oh man, I wanted this thing to be so good, man. Okay, I mean, talking about design alone, this dude hits for me. I really love, like, the vaudeville kind of style where he has like the robber mask and the mustache. Like, that really hits. That's like one of my favorite designs. But Thievul doesn't do it. He just doesn't land, and I don't know. Again, I think I should just judge his Pokemon based on appearance, but it's hard to get it, like, out of my head that I just wish this thing was better. I don't know. I think he's cool enough. You know, I would love to see, like, a buff for him at some point. Because I think his ability, too, is... It sounds cool on paper, but it doesn't really do anything crazy. Yeah, it's got an exclusive ability, which apparently Gumshoes and Yungoos can get, but whatever, called Stakeout, where the offensive stat is doubled against a target that switched in this turn. Sounds cool, bro. Oh, man, justice for this guy. I hope he's revisited at some point. Gossifleur. Embarrassingly, I was about to call this thing Florigato, but I wanted to double check the name, and I was like, oh, wait, no, this is Gossifleur. I don't know what it was about the name. It looks like a Florigato. Either way, yeah, Gossifleur. I feel like I'm being so negative. I don't want to be negative because I do like the Sword and Shield Pokedex. This doesn't do it for me. It's another one of those Pokemon, like the cute grass type that's a little small grass type. And it's not weird enough. It's not cute enough. It's just sort of like, hey, I exist. Yeah, Gossifleur doesn't do it for me, unfortunately. So, yeah, I don't know. It feels like it'd be in a Alola. Like, it has Alola colors to it. I don't know. Eldegoss. Yeah, I kind of got nothing for this one either. I mean, I will say its design is a lot more striking than the usual grass type cute Pokemon, you know, like Cherrim and stuff. Like having, like, what is it? What kind of flower is it? It's supposed to be a full-bloomed ball of cotton. Okay, I thought there was like a specific name, but I'm having trouble finding it. Either way, yeah, making a cotton flower is really fun. I don't know. You know, it's weird because, like, you think Eldegoss would get a little something else because it's just pure grass. I know it'd be way too similar to Whimsicott, but I thought it'd be like Grass Fairy or something. I'm kind of surprised they didn't go harder with Eldegoss. It's just kind of like a grass type and then just moving on. It feels like they just kind of wanted to get done with it. That's a bit sad. I could see some love happening for Eldegoss. It's interesting enough, so I don't know. Wooloo. Oh man, Wooloo. How do I feel about Wooloo? I think I'm a lot more warmer to Wooloo these days. I think when it first came out, I thought it was cute. I mean, I don't know. I think I still think this. I think it's cute. It definitely has that Pokemon energy to it, but I don't think it does enough. I think it needs a little something to be unique. Because when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, so this thing is pretty much a less interesting Mareep. It's cute. I mean, it's kind of hard to make a sheep Pokemon that isn't cute, but it's just kind of fluffy, and it's a normal type, and it's like, oh, anything else? Like, it kind of felt weird that Wooloo just is Wooloo. I don't know, it just looks like more of a Beanie Baby than anything. I will say it was given a bit of character though, because it like rolls around to move, which is a very interesting little character trait. And I also I like this Pokemon as like the signature Pokemon of Hop, because there's like a whole I mean, it's kind of like half theory, half canon, because you can easily see it happen in game. But he gets a Wooloo as I think it's like his second Pokemon after a starter. Either way, he has it in all playthroughs. And then he dumps it for a while, and then he brings it back later. So it's kind of like a cool little character arc kind of thing going on, where he learns to use his favorites rather than just what works. So I like that. I think Wooloo does its job after playing the game. I think it does its job enough. I wish it just had a little something else to it, though. It's hard because it's well, what would you do with it? What type would you give it? Because I think Mareep is in a very good place, because making it a little electric sheep, you could be subtle about it without going overboard. And it's kind of hard to just apply an element to a sheep and not make it a weird design. I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe. Either way, I think Wooloo does his job enough, and he's cute, he's very plushable. And I love that Jaywitz tortured himself to get a shiny one before even playing Sword and Shield. That story alone is enough to raise Wooloo in my mind. Dubwool. I think this thing is just more Wooloo. It's kind of what I expect a Wooloo to evolve into. It's yeah, it's got a couple things, it's got horns now, looks a bit more intimidating, a bit more color. It just looks like the simplest step up you could probably do for Wooloo. It doesn't go crazy, but at the same time, it's well, what would you expect from a Wooloo evolution? I think it's fine. I don't know. I will say, I do appreciate how floofy this thing is. I think that's a really fun thing, because they could have easily trimmed it down to make it more slender and intimidating. But no, it's still maximum floof, and I do think that's funny in contrast to its intimidating gaze. I think that really works out. Chewtle. Okay, I feel more comfortable not liking this thing because I do like Drednaw. But yeah, Chewtle, it looks derpy. It's a very derpy mon. It looks almost kind of like a Mario enemy, but not in a good way. I think it needs I don't know, something done with the eyes, something done with its head. It looks a bit too derpy for me. I kind of wonder if anyone likes Chewtle as their favorite, because I look at this thing and it just looks kind of weird, and it doesn't, I don't know. I mean, if Chewtle's legitimately your favorite, please let me know. Especially because I think Drednaw was revealed first from what I remember. It kind of felt like they designed Drednaw first, and then they went back and made Chewtle. And I feel like it's kind of noticeable, because Drednaw has a much more fleshed out design. Sorry, I'm making this entry all about Drednaw. I don't know if it's the mouth, I don't know if it's the eyes, I don't know if it's the horn. Maybe it's all of it at once, I don't know. But it doesn't really land for me. I feel like they could have did a little bit better with Chewtle. Yeah, let's get to Drednaw now. Yeah, I actually really like Drednaw. Drednaw is a pretty sick mon. Making a turtle on all fours is pretty sick. Trying to think, because we have Blastoise obviously, but I'm trying to think if there were any other turtles. Yeah, there's Turtwig. Yeah, Torterra. Okay, I think this thing is pretty cool. If you're gonna make an intimidating turtle, I think Drednaw is actually pretty awesome. I love how edgy this thing is. Its shell looks like it's hard as diamond, and it's got a really cool jaw to it, and a horn, and the eyes. It does look pretty sick. I'm actually kind of a big Drednaw fan. I mean, as much as I can be anyway, because I feel like it's not powerful enough. I wanted it to be more powerful. It looks like it would be powerful. I think it maybe needed a middle stage or something so we can get a third stage out of it, but I don't know. Gigantamax Drednaw is pretty cool too. I kind of like how it's kind of that cool balance too, where if you wanted Drednaw to be bipedal, then you get it with Gigantamax Drednaw. I will say it's not the most creative Gigantamax in the world. It's kind of like Corviknight in that matter, where it's just okay, cool, it's standing up and it kind of withdrew its head into the shell and call it a day. But you know what, when you see it in game, it does land. It really does. I wish Nessa used it more consistently. I think in the first battle against her, she uses a regular Dynamax one. I want to say she gets Gigantamax later. Man, it just goes to show I just have not replayed Sword and Shield recently. Definitely one of the lesser Gigantamaxes, but I think it's fine for what it is. Yamper! Okay, I actually like Yamper. Making a little electric corgi, that's Pokemon for me. This has Pokemon energy to it. I think he's fun. He's a little plump boy, and I love his little animations, and I love his little tongue. He's fun, and I know people critique his, like, ability because I think he famously has, like, one of the weirdest abilities, which is, what's it called? Oh yeah, Ball Fetch, which I think it, like, makes it so you don't use a Pokeball or something like that. I think it's fun. Not to mention, Boltund doesn't even keep Ball Fetch, so it doesn't even really matter. No one's gonna be using this thing unironically, competitively. I think Yamper does it. Yeah, Yamper's a little cutie. I like him a lot. He is fun. Boltund is pretty sick. Like, having a Lightning Bolt dog is really cool. I wish this thing was better. It's not the best Pokemon there is, but he is pretty sick. I think this is a great little line they have here of Yamper and Boltund, because if you want your electric dog, you got Boltund. If you want your little corgi plushie, you got Yamper. That's like great combination there. So I think these two really hit. And yeah, Boltund, like, that is some sick coloring it has. Yeah, I don't know, it does land. It does land for me. And I also love how he keeps the dog energy to him. Like, he has the fun tongue, you know? At least part of the artwork. I don't remember the model in Sword and Shield having that. I think he keeps his mouth closed. Which is uncanon to dogs, by the way. They are always panting. Rolycoly! Ooh, I like Rolycoly. I like him a lot. I actually really like this line a lot, because when you get to this part of the game, you're like in a mine. And, oh, actually, I don't remember if you see them do it. Either way, this thing can roll around. It has a little wheel to it. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, this thing is fun. And the thing is, based on its design, it's so obvious that it's gonna evolve. So it's just like, oh, I like this thing. It's cool. A little piece of coal that's rolling around on a tire. That's really fun. I don't think Rolycoly carries, like, I don't think it carries much presence by itself. Like, if this was a single stage only Pokemon, I don't think it does enough. It would have to have, like, more notable features like a mouth and more eyes or something, but I don't know. I think it's a necessary evil, honestly. Oh, okay, maybe that sounds too harsh. I think Rolycoly's cute enough. I think it does enough. Yeah, Carkoal is when this line really peaks. I really like Carkoal. Yeah, the first time you see this one is in the mine, and it's on like a mine track, and he's actually going along the mine track with his little wheels, and he's so fun. He's, what would you say? He's like a coal mine cart, but literal, and he's got a fun little expression, and he's got fun eyes. I think he's so fun. This is where the line peaks, in my opinion. I really like this guy, and he's a fire rock. That's so cool, man. I know type-wise, it's not the best type in the world. It has like water and ground types will just like destroy this thing in one hit, but it's cool. It's cool. And then we got Colossal up in here. Despite the fact that I do think Carkoal's better design-wise than Colossal, I think Colossal's cool. He is pretty sick. He has a fun mouth. He has the fun expression to him. The pile of coal looks a little awkward on him. I don't think it looks as seamless as Carkoal, considering Carkoal carries the coal. This one just kind of like, wait, why do you still have coal on you? You're moving now. You're sentient. You don't have to work anymore. But yeah, Colossal's cool enough. I think he looks pretty sick. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then, honestly, it's kind of funny. I kind of wish Gigantamax Colossal was just actual Colossal. I mean, you could argue Colossal looks more like a Pokemon, and I wouldn't even like argue that with you. But Gigantamax Colossal, oh, that is a cool design. He looks like a giant mountain. And I kind of like, too, that he kind of looks like a furnace. You got the little holes in there that you could like see through, and it's just pure fire. This is really cool. And whenever I see Gigantamax Colossal in game, I'm just like, yo, yeah. That's the boy right there. Like, that's the guy you gotta beat. And then when he, like, descends back into regular Colossal, it's just like, oh. But yeah, what a great little line here. What a great line. Applin! Applin! My boy Applin. What a cute little design. I will admit, it's not the most creative design on the planet. It really is just like a worm in an apple, and that's kind of it, and it has little eyes poking out. I will admit, it's not that creative, but I think it's cool enough, for real. Yeah, Applin's cute. I mean, I guess I won't beat around the bush anymore. Let's get to the ones you really want to know about. Flapple, the kind of sword exclusive evolution to Applin. Yeah, Flapple's cool. It never did as much for me as Appletoon, as you'll see. But I think Flapple's pretty neat. I mean, I kind of like the idea that it is a true little dragon dude. He got the little pieces of the apple and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna make this work. And then he made it into like a dragon body and he like flaps the apple skin around. Like, that's actually a really creative idea. It's such a weird idea, but it's so creative where it's like, hey, let's make this little worm that's like a dragon and then go into an apple and then the apple becomes part of its body. Like, that's so interesting as a design. I think Flapple lands pretty well. And I could see why people prefer this over Appletoon. Yeah, nothing really much else to say about Flapple. Oh, that's right, we have to talk about Gigantamax Flapple. It's fun. It's definitely one of the most creative Gigantamax designs. I appreciate that it's not just like Flapple, but big. Like, there is something going on here. I like that he just gets a giant apple, and he pokes his head out and he makes those weird noises. Like, it's a fun design for Flapple. I mean, you could argue it doesn't really look like Flapple, but I think it's fine. This is what Flapple looks like in general. It's just that it's in a different kind of apple this time. So I like it enough. Appletoon. This is where the line peaks, in my opinion. I really, really like Appletoon. It might be my favorite dragon type in the region if it wasn't for the Dreepy line, but we'll get to them. But Appletoon is absolutely adorable. I love the concept that they took the apple and they're like, hey, let's just make a chunky apple pie dragon. It is so absurd, but wow, do I love it. It is so fun. It is such a fun design to give to the Applin line. And that's why Appletoon absolutely lands for me. I knew I had to have this thing because I played Sword, and this thing is a Shield exclusive, kinda, because you have to get like a certain apple that's only in Shield, but then you could like trade for it. Either way, Appletoon absolutely slays. I really like this dude. Now, I think my only nitpick with Appletoon, I mean, it is pretty perfect, but my only nitpick with the little Appletoon dude is I wish it was bigger. Like, this thing gives me Snorlax energy. I don't need it to be, like, super massive or anything, but big enough that I feel like I could be, like, I don't know, sit on him or, like, something. I don't know. He looks big. He looks like a big boy. But then you get him, and he's like he's like Yamper size. And it's like, oh, I thought you were going to be way bigger than that. So I'm a little disappointed with that because Sword and Shield doesn't scale based on size. So when I saw Appletoon's size for the first time, when they scaled it, I was like, oh, that's his size? I don't know. It was a very disappointing moment for me. But no, Appletoon is perfection. Now, I will address this. The Gigantamax form is the same as Flapple, and I think the Gigantamax fits Flapple more. Appletoon's Gigantamax doesn't look like it. They share it, and I feel like it's more Flapple-oriented. I feel like Appletoon could have did something different with the Gigantamax. I kind of hate that it's like the same thing. They definitely could have been a lot more creative with the Gigantamax there. So it's a disappointing Gigantamax. I kind of wish this thing just became like a big baked apple pie or something. I don't know. But it is pretty disappointing to say the least. Silicabra. What do I think about Silicabra? Is it Silicabra or is it Silicobra? What do I think about the little snake? I think it's fine. I think if you like snakes and you want a little ground snake, I think there's worse options than Silicabra here. Also, a lot of the snake Pokemon, they're kind of more on the intimidating side. Okay, intimidating, quote-unquote, as much as you can be for Pokemon anyway. Ekans and Arbok, they don't really look like they'd be your best friends. Viper doesn't look like they'll be your best friend. Heck, even Superior kind of has that, like, I'm better than you energy to him. But I don't know. I love Silicabra and Sandaconda. Like, they actually do feel more, like, on the Pokemon side of things, where it's like, yeah, I could see your best friend being a Silicabra, you know? He looks like a fun little guy. Why not? I like his eyes. I love his little nose. I think he does just enough. Sandacabra is pretty cool, too. It's very interesting. They made him very, what's the word? Very, spindly. I don't know. I mean, it's sort of exemplified later through his Gigantamax when he, like, uncoils. Yeah, I like how they play with the coil dynamic there. It makes it look really fun. And, yeah, Yeah, and he carries that Silicabra energy to him, so if you like Silicabra, like Sandaconda carries that pretty dang well, I think. The Gigantamax isn't too bad either. Like, I think it's kind of cool that they took the coil idea and then made it into, like, a sand twister tornado thing. That's actually very clever, honestly. I think it's pretty cool. I think it is actually a really cool Pokemon in that regard. So, yeah. Ground Snake accomplished. They did really good with this line. Cramorant! Cramorant. Cramorant is fun. It kind of feels like Pelipper, but if the developer actually liked them. Because it kind of feels like Pelipper exists and then they just kind of moved on. It felt like Cramorant was like, all right, let's do Pelipper again, but give it a lot of personality. I love its no thoughts expression. I love its little wings. I love its, I don't know, I love its color. And it also has a very unique ability where if you use Dive, it picks up something in its mouth and then fires it at you. Most of the time, it gets a, I think it's Arrokuda, but then sometimes it'll get a Pikachu. So you have the great animation of a Pikachu just flailing in Cramorant's mouth as it's just like, oh, get it out, you know? Oh, man. I think Cramorant's a lot of fun. I know, like, some people were really kind of confused when it showed up in Pokemon Unite, where it's like Cramorant of all things. But I think it lands, man. I think it lands. Also, the shiny form's fun, too. The orange color. I think that's really fun. Makes it look like Kazooie from Banjo and Kazooie. Arrokuda. I was right. Cool. Arrokuda's pretty cool. I think he's pretty cool. It kind of reminds me of, like... Okay, this is going to sound weird. It feels like Chewtle handled with care. Because, for me, Barraskewda is when the Pokemon gets really cool. But you can't sleep on Arrokuda. I think it does just enough. I love his little derpy design. I love his little derpy smile. He's a little cutie. He's a little cutie. Yeah, not much else to say. I have no issues with Arrokuda. He is pretty cool. Barraskewda. This thing is really rad. Yeah, it's kind of what I wanted Veluza to be. Like, just sort of this menacing little fish. But I think Barraskewda captures this a lot more. I love how the fins rotate. That actually gives it a lot of character. It makes it like kind of like a torpedo. And it was also kind of fun to learn that this thing is actually pretty legit. Like, it's actually pretty solid in competitive. If anything, like one of the better Pokemon. Yeah, it has like a really high attack and speed stats. So this thing's like, oh my god, it's like a torpedo fish coming right at you. Definitely adds to it. Yeah, I don't know. Barraskewda is like a Pokemon that you wouldn't think would be super cool, but I think he's pretty rad. Like, I love his little head. I don't know, it's oddly menacing, and I really appreciate it for that, because it could have been just another one of those fish Pokemon that just get overlooked, but no, Barraskewda's pretty sick. I like him. Okay, I will just say before we move on, though, it's actually really funny, because this thing feels like they could have made another water steel type out of, but they didn't. They just really want Empoleon to keep that title, don't they? Toxel. What do I think of little Toxel here? I know I said necessary evil earlier by accident, but I think Toxel might actually be the necessary evil, because you need to make the Pokemon that becomes Toxtricity, and this looks like a Pokemon that becomes Toxtricity. I mean, okay, out the gate, I've said before, I really don't like it when Pokemon wear diapers. I don't know, something about that, it always weirds me out. I know, like, some people are gonna say, it's like, well, technically, you could look at Bonsly wearing a diaper. It's like, no, shut up, it's not wearing a diaper. Get out of my head, no. I don't know, I don't like that design with Pokemon, it just looks very weird. So that's already not doing favors for it. Its pose doesn't do favors either. It just looks like a baby, and it's like, oh, here's my literal baby. Kind of looks a bit weird. One thing I will say that's actually pretty cool is that the head, a lightning thing, actually does spark. It's animated to like spark, which is really cool. But other than that, I'm really stretching. I'm actually not a fan of Toxel here, not as much anyway, but it's okay. Because now we can talk about Toxtricity, starting with the low-key form. Between the two, I like the... What's it called? Okay, it's low-key and punk rock. I always want to call it high-key and low-key, but I know that's not it. Anyway, yeah, we're starting with low-key form. I think he's pretty alright. I think he's pretty cool. I mean, Toxtricity is just a sick design in general, but the low-key form does land for me. The blue electricity does look pretty dang sick. I love his more chill expression. Like, it's a fun design. Like, blue and purple does look really good together. And I like the concept of blue electricity. Like, that's pretty sick. But yeah, moving on to, I was about to call it high key form, even after I looked it up. Punk rock form. Oh yeah, this thing, whew, Toxtricity. This is really rad. Now, it's kind of funny because you can kind of see what Game Freak was getting at, because I feel like what started here was that they were like, hey, we don't have a poison electric type. Let's make a poison electric type. And then they designed Toxtricity, and then they just worked backwards. It kind of feels like that. Some of the other types, it kind of felt like they were like, okay, let's just make a Pokemon, and then whatever type it lands on, cool. It never really felt like they thought of the type first and then worked around that. It kind of feels kind of obvious that they thought of a poison electric type and then they made Toxtricity, you know what I mean? But no, it completely lands. I love the whole punk rocker aesthetic to him. Overdrive is a really cool thing. I love how it's like strumming a guitar. That's a really fun theme to him. Yeah, Toxtricity absolutely lands. Definitely one of the most iconic Pokemon from Sword and Shield, I think. I think just objectively. And again, like, I always say this, but I love it when Pokemon aren't based on things. Like, I love it when you can just look at a Pokemon and you're like, that is just, it's nothing. It's just a weird monster. It's like, yeah, I love it. Like, I don't want it to be just an animal. I like it when it's like a more unique kind of monster thing, you know? Yeah, Toxtricity absolutely lands. And despite me not liking the whole Gigantamax Flapple Appletoon situation where they share Gigantamax Toxtricity slays. Like, having the yellow and blue electricity in it is so dang cool, and it just looks so sick, man. I remember this thing wasn't released on day one, but people were biding their time to wait for this thing to release, because I think people... They probably went to the code and grabbed it, but yeah, looking at the animations and everything, it's like, oh man, it has like a guitar that it hits people with. Like, it's like, oh, it's so rad. Yeah, Toxtricity absolutely slays. Someone brought this up, and I felt bad because I don't remember who originally commented it, but they said, like, if we wanted Gen 8 representation in Smash Brothers, they should have included Toxtricity, and I hate it because I can't get that out of my mind. That would have been such a cool character to have in Smash Brothers. You would have so many colors to work with. The final Smash could have been Gigantamax. You could have had another electric kind of fighter that like stuns people. Yeah, I don't know. Toxtricity is just everything. What a great Pokemon. Oh man, and here's some whiplash. Sizzlypede. I think Sizzlypede is very plain. It kind of feels like another situation. I don't know why this happens so much with Sword and Shield, where you design the evolutions first and then worked backwards. Sizzlypede kind of feels like that. It's very plain. It is a very plain mon. It's just kind of a centipede with a little fire mustache. And that's sort of it. I don't know. It doesn't do enough, man. I feel bad to say it, but yeah, it doesn't do enough. Scentiscorch. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. It's not amazing, but he is pretty dang cool. Like, making a fire centipede, that was gonna hit. Like, we all knew that was gonna hit. I love how the fire kind of forms like a bit of a weird X, like, cross kind of look to it. So yeah, I appreciate what it does. Again, like, not super amazing, but I think this Pokemon's cool enough. You wanted a bug fire type, you got a bug fire type. Gigantamax Scentiscorch never really did it for me. I love the animations and I love the lighting it has. It makes it look a lot more intimidating and like fiery, but it just looks like a bigger Scentiscorch. Like, they just sort of stretched it out and stretched out the fire and called it a day. It's actually kind of crazy. I feel like they could have did a lot more with Gigantamax Scentiscorch. Like, it's weird, because some Gigantamaxes feel just so creative and unique, and then others are like, just make it bigger. And then, I don't know, change its pose. And yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, yeah, it doesn't do enough for me. It doesn't do enough. To the point where, looking at models, I don't know how this happened, but I was getting the Gigantamax confused with the regular one. Oh, I think I know what happened. I think I was battling it, And I thought it just Dynamaxed because I wasn't really paying attention. But then later I learned it was a Gigantamax form. I was like, wait, that was Gigantamax. It just looked like its regular form. Cobblepus. I actually thought this thing was called Cobblepus for the longest time, but it's Cobblepus. Okay. He's pretty cute. I actually really like this little guy. He's a little cutie. I kind of like the idea that they're just taking a bunch of, like, generically considered sea life and making them do fisticuffs and calling them fighting types. Because this feels very reminiscent of, what's it called? Crabrawler from Alola. I mean, I know a lot of people say Galarian and Alola feel very similar in a lot of ways. This is definitely where I see it. He's a cute little guy. I like him a lot. I never used him, but I love his little animations, and I don't know. He just seems like he's ready. Ready for a fight. I don't know if that's actually adorable or not, but I don't know. I think he lands. I do like him more than Grapplock, which, yeah, here we are. Grapplock, or Grapplocked with a T at the end. I don't really know how to pronounce it, really. Grapplock sounds a lot better than Grapplocked, but yeah, I'll probably just call him Grapplock just for simplicity's sake. Either way, I know this Pokemon is very beloved. People really like Grapplock. Me, personally, it didn't really land. I like him enough. I think objectively, I consider him to be a pretty cool Pokemon. His walking animation is pretty terrifying when he, like, chases after you. And his cry is pretty intimidating. I like his design. I find it very unique. He's not water fighting. I feel like that would have been the low-hanging fruit. But no, he's just flat out fighting type. It's a very fascinating Pokemon for sure. And he has a pretty good shiny form. But I don't know why. He just didn't land for me. I think the thing is, I like him. I just don't love him. Like, people really love him. And yeah, I was never really a super duper big Grapplock fan. So yeah, I think that's my consensus on him. Sinistea. This thing's cute. I like it enough. I like, he looks a lot better in game with the animations you get for Sinistea. I love how the cup isn't really the Pokemon, but it looks like it could be. Like, it has eyes and a mouth. But as you can see, the real Pokemon is the substance inside. And I like how a little hand is grabbing the broken piece of the cup to look like a handle. And I'm just now noticing it looks like the pinky's outstretched too. Like it's some fancy drink going on here. That's actually really cool attention to detail. Yeah, if you were gonna make a teacup Pokemon, like a literal teacup Pokemon, I can't really see how you do it better. This is pretty good. I like Sinistea. And plus, I think the gimmick is pretty fun. I know people like to complain about the whole thing where it's just like, oh, I hate that there's like antique form and phony form. But I don't know. I like it when there's just a little bit of oomph when it comes to catching Pokemon, because that's kind of the theme of it. You know, you want to try to get like rare ones or specific ones. And I think it adds a bit of flavor. I think it's pretty cool. And then we got good old Poltegeist. I like Poltegeist more than Sinistea. I think there's more interesting stuff happening now. I love that the substance is actually formed into an actual Pokemon that you can see now. It's pretty cute. It's a pretty cute design. Again, like, I think if you're gonna do Pokemon based on pots and teacups, then this is how you do it. This is how you do it. It's kind of funny because a lot of people don't like item-based Pokemon. I think they're very good when they're ghost types. Like having the possessed ghost, or rather having an item possessed by a ghost, or the ghost holding an item or something, it really works. It really works. So it's pretty rad. I like Poltegeist. Hatenna. Oh, I'm just now noticing. Is it called Hatenna because the hat is supposed to look like an antenna? Huh. Interesting. What do I think of Hatenna? I think Hatenna's pretty alright. I mean, to be honest, I think Hatcham sort of overshadows Hatenna for me, but I think Hatenna's cute enough. You know, having the bangs over your eyes look, it's kind of a hard look to not like, you know? We'll just break it down like this. My kind of weird issue with the Hatenna line is that it kind of feels like a ripoff of the Ralts line a little bit. And I usually wouldn't mind that if they did something a little different than Ralts. But it was kind of like how, what was it called? Gothitelle. Gothitelle kind of felt like another Ralts to me. But the difference is that Ralts eventually got like fairy typing and stuff, so it kind of was able to separate itself from the Gothitelle line. And I feel like some people could argue that Gothitelle was more of an Alakazam spiritual successor. This one just feels like they're trying to capture that Ralts energy in a bottle again. And it kind of, I don't know. I don't know if it works, but yeah, Hatenna's cute enough. I think Hatchrim is definitely where the line shines though. Because that's like when the theme starts coming in, you start seeing like the Magician's Hat. It's kind of interesting because I thought this thing would be more fairy-based, but it's a psychic Pokemon, so it definitely looks more like a fairy. I know Hatterene is when it becomes psychic fairy, but it feels like it should have started as a fairy and became a psychic later. Either way, I think Hatchrim rocks it. I think it's a cute Pokemon design, and I don't know. I do like the idea that it's just wearing a very, very large hat that it's just kind of stuck to, and the weird ends are like making it stand on end, so it's kind of like floating. I think it's a cute design. Hatterene's pretty good. Yeah, I think it's all right. I've never been as much of a Hatterene fan as much as other people, which I know I keep saying in these thoughts and opinions, but I don't know. I always just looked at Hatterene, I'm like, it's all right, you know? It does just enough to be memorable, and I think it's cute. It's not my favorite. It's not my least favorite. It just kind of feels there. And the Gigantamax is also kind of just there as well. It's one of those Gigantamax where they change like one thing, and that's the Gigantamax form. Like it gets those weird, I don't know what you call them, those weird hands or whatever, and it looks kind of freaky. I sort of wish that was the base design just to give it something a little bit more memorable, but I don't know. I don't hate Hatterene. I like Hatterene enough. I don't really have any strong feelings towards Hatterene, really. Impidimp. We got our Dark Fairy, which is a very exciting typing. And I think for a Dark Fairy, it really works. I like it because it kind of has that Sableye energy, but it really does go a different route where it feels like its own thing. Oh, I actually never knew this thing is 100% male. Huh, interesting. Either way, yeah, for a Dark Fairy, I think Impidimp rocks. Yeah, he's a funny little dude. He looks pretty silly. I love his little tongue. The pink and the weird pink sinister flavor is pretty fun as well. I think he's pretty good. He's a little gremlin. Morgrem. He makes me laugh. He's so edgy, but like, I think usually Pokemon like this, I'm just kind of like, but I think he rocks it. In a way, I almost wish it just kind of went Morgrem than Grimmsnarl, but I don't mind Impidimp, but I definitely think this one's kind of where that, like, kind of design peaks, where it's like, oh, what is that thing, you know? Like, that actually really looks like a Dark Fairy. Like, it looks creepy enough to be a dark type, but it looks kind of oddly, like, cute enough to be a fairy, like a demented fairy. I think Morgrem is kind of underrated, honestly. I do like Morgrem a lot. And here we go with Grimmsnarl. I actually tried using this thing. I did. I like Grimmsnarl, but here's the thing. Grimmsnarl, it's so funny. It's a Pokemon that I should love. It gets Prankster. It's a Dark Fairy, which is so unique. I think the design is pretty solid for what it is. The shiny is my favorite color. And the Gigantamax looks like Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan? Like, what? That was definitely a direction I wasn't anticipating this going. But, I don't know, there's something about Grimmsnarl that just, it never really landed as much for me as I expected it to. Like, listing all that out on paper, I'm just like, yeah, I should like this thing more. Why don't I? Like, it's so weird. Again, I like it, I just don't love it like I should. But I can admit that, like, yeah, objectively, this thing rocks, you know? Again, I can't understate, like, as an Attack on Titan fan, that Gigantamax Form is just so rad. Totally looks like Eren Yeager. Yeah, the base design's pretty cool. And I also think it's kind of rad how when he attacks, he has like a weird, like, almost like Venom attack thing where like his arm just outstretches. It becomes this like weird ink attack. It's like, ooh, that's kind of cool looking. Again, I'm just like, I don't know why I don't like this Pokemon as much as I should. It sounds like I'm being overly negative to the Sword and Shield decks, but trust me, I like this Pokedex, I swear. Oh, hey, here we go, our first regional form of the day. here we are with Galarian Zigzagoon. You know, I will say that what I really like about this Galarian form, despite being a pretty simple premise, is it feels like Zigzagoon with a modern flair, you know? Because Zigzagoon back in the day, I love Zigzagoon. He was a little cutie, little raccoon dog. How can you not like Zigzagoon? But I think there was just enough here to make it feel like a modern interpretation of Zigzagoon. His expression is more dramatic. His eyes are more dramatic. He has much more dramatic typing. It does feel like it added some much needed life to Zigzagoon, and I kind of love him. I kind of love him a lot. The black and white is a really fun idea, and it's actually cool that they essentially made a Pokemon inspired by Kiss. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, I would never have expected that, but it works out really well. I think this is a really good regional form, and it's cool because this is a normal dark type. The other ones are kind of boring by comparison. Like, I look at a Alolan Rattata, who is just like Rattata with a mustache, or Meowth, who is just like Meowth, but like with a darker color and more smirky expression. This one definitely looks like it would be like a regional variant of Zigzagoon, instead of just coloring it black and being like, oh, it's dark Zigzagoon, you know what I mean? So I actually think this form's pretty good. This is gonna be kind of a boring entry because pretty much everything I said about Zigzagoon, I can also say that Lanoon follows suit. Like, I'm just gonna be honest, Lanoon was never one of my favorite designs. I think he was fine, but it just kind of felt like a diet ferret, just not as cute. But yeah, you know, Galarian Lanoon, it does enough, you know? More interesting color, more interesting expression, got the tongue. Yeah. Pretty much everything I said about Zigzagoon could apply to Galarian Lanoon. Now, between the two, I will say that the gap isn't as wide, which is nice, because with Zigzagoon, I always felt it was just kind of the peak between the two. Like, Lanoon felt like it was kind of like not as good as Zigzagoon design-wise. But these two, if I had a Lanoon, I feel like I wouldn't be as disappointed because I'm like, okay, cool, we're still having fun with this design, you know? I don't know. I do appreciate that the balance is sort of more there between the Galarian family, so. Plus, I love the teeth on Galarian Lanoon. I think it adds a lot to it. Obstagoon, oh man. I'm trying to think if I want to throw in my little rant for later or for now. Let's talk about the positives right now. Yeah, it's really cool that we got a final stage to Zigzagoon. A new evolutionary form for Lanoon. And yeah, I think it complements Lanoon's design very well. It kind of takes what works with Lanoon and makes it more of a powerful Pokemon, and it's kind of rad. Yeah, Obstagoon does have a bit going on. It has like the fur on the arms and the legs, and it has like kind of like a weird scar on its arm. It's definitely a lot more edgier, but as a dark type, it is pretty rad. I actually have no issues with Obstagoon. I think he looks pretty cool, and I think he is a worthy successor to Lanoon. And yeah, and I think he's represented pretty well in game. I think he's one of the signature Pokemon of Pierre's. It's kind of hard to say because I think the gimmick with Pierre's is he has multiple aces. Like, they all could be considered his ace, but I remember him having Obstagoon mainly. Obstagoon's pretty good. I really like Obstagoon. Now, my rant, I guess, comes here. My issue with the evolutionary forms of regional variants is that I feel like it sort of leaves the original Pokemon in the dust, and I don't really like that. Basically, what I mean is that it's so cool that Obstagoon exists as the final evolution of Lanoon, but is it really the final evolution of Lanoon? It's the final evolution of Galarian Lanoon, but not regular one. And I just feel like the regular kind of gets screwed on that. Like, it kind of feels like the original Zigzagoon and Lanoon are they're just kind of trapped in their mediocrity while their new variants kind of get all the toys. And I get it, you know, you want to do something new with the regional forms, which is fun. And I love that I love that Evolutions flat out just came back after a long hiatus from the series. It's cool to see it, but I I don't know. I kind of wish they would go back and make variations for the older ones. Like, I know it sounds weird, but I wouldn't mind like a Hoenn version of Obstagoon. You get what I mean? I don't mind it if regional variants evolve into different Pokemon, but then their originals evolved into something else. Like, for example, Wooper, Clodsire, and then the regular becomes Wooper, Quagsire. I just have more of an issue when the regional forms get the new stuff. You know, we'll talk more about that in a bit, I guess. Galarian Meowth. I really like Galarian Meowth. Dare I say, my favorite form of Meowth. Now, I mean, I think the thing is that Meowth has always been a very interesting Pokemon for me because the anime hard carried Meowth. I mean, let's be honest. Let us be dead honest with ourselves. I don't think Meowth would be nearly as relevant if it wasn't for the anime. I think it would just be a little forgettable little cat that maybe some people like, you know, but nothing to write home about. But nowadays, like, yeah, Meowth is like an icon, you know? So it's kind of cool that we got like 2 regional variations of Meowth. That's actually pretty rad. And looking at the original Meowth, in-game, it looks kind of boring. And I did like the Alolan one. I thought the expression was really fun, but it still didn't do enough for me. I needed a little something. I think Galarian Meowth perfectly encapsulates what I wanted from Meowth. This thing has personality. I love the expression. I love the type. It's Steel type. It's such an interesting thing for it to become. And I love the little horns. I love how the coin became a different color. And I love the beard. Like, come on, man. A Viking Meowth with a long flowing beard. That's so cool. I don't know. Galarian Meowth has always been a beloved one for me. Berserker. This is going to be a very confusing subject because I don't like Berserker as much as I should. I just talked about how much I love Galarian Meowth. I don't think Berserker delivers on it as much. I think it kind of goes a bit too wild with the design. I appreciate it for existing, but I think it goes a little bit too much. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like they could have made a cleaner looking version of Berserker that I would have liked a little bit more. It just kind of looks a bit cluttered here. That being said, I far prefer Berserker to anything we've gotten with Persian. I always thought like Persian was kind of a boring design. Like I thought Meowth kind of carried all the charisma, and then Persian just sort of went, all right, well, let's take that fun design that Meowth had and just make it a cat. And it's like, oh, because the original was kind of dull. It even took away the coin. Like, it's like, what? You couldn't even, like, keep the coin? You have a gem now, cool, but it doesn't look nearly as good as the coin. And then Alolan Persian was just Garfield, and it just looked a bit too dumb. They tried to do something. It didn't land for me, though. Berserker, what I really like about Berserker is it feels like a reboot to Persian, where it's like, okay, well, let's take Meowth's design and actually expand on Meowth's design specifically. I really, really like that we didn't get Galarian Persian. I actually do like that we got Berserker out of this. So that's the part that I like to Berserker. And I kind of like that it actually has a bit of a niche. This thing is, it's not the best Pokemon to ever exist, but it's actually got a really cool ability in Steely Spirit. And there is some cool stuff you can do with it. Again, I don't like it as much, but I appreciate that this thing exists, and I don't know. I consider Galarian Meowth a win, ultimately. Galarian Meowth and Berserker are pretty cool. Galarian Stunfisk. Okay, how do we approach this one? I mean, let's talk about the regular Stunfisk. Regular Stunfisk never did much for me. I know it's famously considered to be, like, one of the worst Pokemon ever created. I mean, it kind of... I can't disagree with that, but I don't know. It definitely feels very forgettable. So I think the thing is that what I like about Galarian Stunfisk here is they definitely took Stunfisk and was like, all right, let's do more of an idea now. And making it into a bear trap was actually kind of neat, you know? And having the Pokeball in the center and having a bit more of an idea here, it really worked for Galarian or it just worked for Stunfisk in general. So, I definitely prefer it over Stunfisk, that's for sure. Still don't like it as much, you know? It's never really been a thing where I'm like, oh my god, we have to get Stunfisk. But, I don't know, I appreciate that Stunfisk got a regional variant because, funny enough, I feel like this thing was created because Game Freak had to prove to us that, no, we're gonna revisit old Pokemon. Because, you know, Sword and Shield was the one where they cut the decks for the first time. And I heard a ton of people saying, it's like, oh, good, that means, like, we'll never see Stunfisk again. They'll only do, like, the popular ones, which, you know, I have my issues with that. But anyway, it felt like a way for them to be like, oh, no, we're not forgetting about Pokemon. Just to prove it to you, here's Galarian Stunfisk, which no one was asking for. So I kind of admire their moxie on that. I don't know. Anyway, I do like that this thing exists ultimately, and I think it's just funny that Stunfisk got a regional variant. I think that's really fun, and you know, I think it adds just enough to Stunfisk to make it pretty memorable now. Galarian Corsola is pretty cool. I really like Galarian Corsola. Now, this thing is depressing as heck, but I think it kind of put Corsola on the map for me. I don't know. I think it's really cool. This is so weird, talking about the real-life dead coral reefs, but it's kind of cool how they took that idea and made the grim side of it. And what's really cool is that it doesn't have the coral growing out. It's like a ghost, like, coral thing that it's projecting out of it. The real body is just a stump, essentially. It's very creative, and I really like it. It is a really cool little Pokemon. And unfortunately, I couldn't use this thing. I totally would have, but it's Pokemon Shield exclusive, so I didn't get to use it. But I actually really like Galarian Corsola. Again, I think it put Corsola on the map for me, so. And then we got good old Cursola. Cursola is really cool too. And not only is this thing really good, I think it's a really good design. I think it does a lot of service to Corsola and really turns it into a very memorable Pokemon. I really like Cursola here. And plus, it's just a very clever name. It's like, all right, we got a ghost type Corsola. What are we gonna call it? Cursola? There we go. Stamp that, ship it out. So, I don't know. I really appreciate that. Now, going back to my little rant from earlier, my problem is that they gave something really fun to the new Corsola, but the original Corsola gets nothing. Now, I know it would be jarring to create a Johtonian Cursola. It wouldn't even make sense. A water rock type that would be happy because it's alive, called Cursola. They would have to think about something, but I don't know. I just feel bad original Corsola got screwed like that because I like original Corsola. I thought it's cute. It's a little pink coral. And I don't know. I wanted to see the same love expressed for it. So, I don't know. Maybe in a Legends game or something we'll get a Johtonian Cursola. I don't know how the naming convention would work. But I kind of hope to see some love for Corsola in the future. The regular one, anyway. I mean, geez, the regular one doesn't even get a Violite boost. It's just like, come on, man. Anyway, rant aside, Cursola is great. Galarian Corsola is also really great. This is what regional variants are made of and why I like them so much. Galarian Farfetch'd. Again, it feels like kind of a more modern reboot to Farfetch'd. They gave it a bigger leak. They gave it a more dynamic expression. And they gave it more of a theme. Like, I like the idea that it's just training to be a cool Pokemon. Farfetch'd originally just felt like it was there. Like, it's like, what are you doing? Like, what idea is here? You're a duck with a leak. And it's like, I don't know. It always felt like such a jarring Pokemon. But yeah, I think Galarian Farfetch'd is, it's a lot more focused. And between the two Farfetch'd, yeah, this one would be the one that I actually want to go for. Not even because it evolves into Sirfetch'd, but just because it just looks more interesting. And I love the giant leak compared to the little small one. So yeah, Galarian Farfetch'd absolutely lands. And here we go, baby. Sirfetch'd, the absolute Giga Chad. I really like this guy. Now, the thing is that as a kid, for some reason, I always had a fascination with evolving Farfetch'd. And I always wanted to see a Farfetch'd evolution. And I mean, geez, this had to be like, I was thinking about a Farfetch'd evolution since like Gen 3, I think. Gen 4, Gen 3, Gen 4? I don't know. Either way, years and years ago, for sure. So seeing Sirfetch'd finally all these years later, when I thought all hope was lost for Farfetch'd, was so gratifying. And what a great Pokemon. I love him. I love him. He's simple. He's just a little Giga Chad duck. He's a little short king. And he has his shield and his sword. It's just like, man, that's so fun. And he has a fun signature ability. And it's actually pretty good too, from what I recall. It's pretty good as well and competitive. And yeah, my only issue is that it does leave original Farfetch'd in the dust. Like, it kind of feels weird because this thing doesn't really feel Galarian. Like, I feel like you could just evolve a regular Farfetch'd into Sirfetch'd and no one would complain. But I don't know. I don't know, man. This was probably one of the most satisfying cross-gen evolutions in the series for me. And I'm so happy it happened with Farfetch'd after all these years. So, no complaints from me. Sirfetch'd is an absolute beast. Man, I think the Pokedex is just throwing all the Galarian forms at once. All right, here we go. Yeah, Galarian Yamask. I mean, it's simple. It's Yamask, but there's a different item this time. Yeah, not much complaints here. Yeah, what do I even talk about here? I mean, I guess just Yamask has always been a really fun Pokemon for me. I think it's a fun idea to just take a weird ghost design and then give it an item that it's so possessive of, because I know the original one, it was like its face or something, and then this one, I don't know the lore with this one, but it's probably got something to do with that. And I like how they just changed the theme. It's a very simple change, but they were like, well, what if it was carrying a bit of a stone tablet to evolve into a different form of Yamask? So I think it lands. I think it's a very smart regional evolution, and dare I say, it's still better than some of the Alolan ones. So, yeah, Galarian Yamask, you could stay. I like you. Runerigus. This thing's cool. Yeah, it's definitely memorable. For sure. Definitely memorable. If anything, just for that insane evolution method that you have to do in order to get yourself a Runerigus. It is always hard to get one, especially in Pokemon Go as well. And I also kind of like that they kept the theme. Like, the art on Runerigus kind of looks like the art on Corviknight. And it's a very interesting thing when I can look at both variants and be completely satisfied with both of them, because the original Yamask became Corviknight and then this one became Runerigus. I like them both equally. I think they're both cool. So it's pretty much just whatever flavor of Yamask you want, really. I will say, the one thing with Runerigus that I don't like is I feel like it was a missed opportunity. I have no idea why this thing is not Rock Ghost. Rock Ghost has never happened. And this just felt like the most obvious time to do Rock Ghost. I know some people argue Sableye could have been Rock Ghost, which, valid, it literally eats rocks. But I'm willing to accept that it's a Dark Ghost just because it's in a cave, you know. But this one, it's like, the writing was like on the wall. And I swear that wasn't a pun. But the writing was on the wall to make this thing a Rock Ghost. And I am so shocked they went ground. I get it, it's supposed to be like clay, but come on, man, Rock Ghost, like, you did all this stuff to make like Toxtricity and some of these other types work, but not Rock Ghost. That will just always be jarring to me. I don't know. But either way, yeah, I think this regional variant also lands. Honestly, the regional variants in Galar have been pretty top tier. Like, this was the region I think that convinced a lot of people that regional variants are actually pretty awesome. Because I know, like, there was weird dissent with Alola where, other than like Alolan Vulpix, people were just like, do we really need these, you know? But I think Galar was the one where it's like, oh no, these can get pretty cool, so. Which is appreciated, because I really like regional variants, so. Galarian Ponyta. It's funny, because now we're gonna start going down. Oh man, you know, I don't dislike Galarian Ponyta, but I do look at it and I'm just like, you? Like, why you? Like, I feel like there were other Kantomons that you could have made into Galarian variants. Now, albeit, I will just say, Galarian Ponyta is still adorable, and the animation is great, the fur is great, I love that it's I love that it goes more Psychic Fairy variant, even though apparently this one's Psychic and the next one's Psychic Fairy. Yeah. I don't know. Galarian Ponyta is weird for me. I like Galarian Ponyta enough. Like, it gives me the My Little Pony flair. Like, big time. But I don't know. Like, I feel like Ponyta was interesting enough. Like, usually when you do a regional variant, you usually take a Pokemon that kind of was more simpler and then do something more interesting with it. I feel like Ponyta, they kind of went backwards. Because I was like, it was a horse that was on fire. How do you get better than that? And then they were like, well, let's just make the fire into, like, hair. And it's like, that's not nearly as interesting, but okay. And then we have Galarian Rapidash, which is a Psychic Fairy. It's another Psychic Fairy, which was always weird to me. I feel like they could have did something a little bit different there. Because I'm like, really? You also introduced Hatterene this gen. Like, why are we doing another Psychic Fairy? It doesn't look as good as regular Rapidash. I gotta be that guy. Not to be a Gen 1er, but yeah, regular Rapidash looks way better. This one was the one that kind of confused me. Like, I'm just like, why did we need this? It just feels very, I don't know. Because at least with Galarian Ponyta, I'm like, okay, that's cute. And I love the animation and I love the shiny, but Galarian Rapidash just never did it for me. And I sort of look back and I'm like, oh yeah, you exist. Huh. I don't know. I feel like they should have picked another Kanto, like, Pokemon to make a regional variant here. Or, God forbid, any other region other than the OG one, so. Oh, hey, it's Milcery! I like Milcery. Cute little fairy type. Little milk fairy type. I'm not gonna lie, it's not the most creative Pokemon in the world. It really is just a drop of milk with eyes. But I thought it was cute enough. I don't know. I thought it was fun. I liked finding him. I thought it was super duper cute. And I think it's kind of clever that they took this Pokemon and decided to be like, all right, we're going to make a fairy Pokemon that's a cake. Well, what do you need to make cake? Milk. So let's make a little milk fairy that you have to turn into a cake. That's where Milcery's design comes in clutch for me and why I like Milcery's design there. And also, it's just really satisfying in game. Like, I like that you could see little drops, like, rising from its head. Like, that's really satisfying. Some of these Pokemon, you definitely look at the artwork. Sometimes they look better in artwork. Sometimes they look better in game. This is another one I think, like, you have to see it in game for the full context. Yeah, I think Milcery's pretty good. Alcremie's pretty rad. I like this thing. Actually, it's funny because I called it a cake, but it's not really. Like, the Gigantamax is a cake, but this thing's more like icing, right? Either way, it's a tasty treat. You guys get what I mean. I actually think Alcremie's pretty cool. Again, I like those little gimmicks where you have to be super specific to get a certain, like, Pokemon, you know? Like, with Sinistea, you had to find an actual, like, antique version, or Spinda, like, comes with different spots, you know? Alcremie, I think the gimmick is that you have to, like, spin for a certain amount of time, and then it, like, you add a different type of treat to it, and it becomes a variation. And I just think it's so cool that you can get your very own Alcremie that you like. I think that's a lot of fun. I think this was just really fun to do. And I remember playing Pokemon Sword and Shield for the first time and doing the spin method. And I don't know. I just felt like I was having fun. Like, I'm like, this is kind of what being a Pokemon trainer is all about. Like, just doing something weird to get a Pokemon. I just think that's really fun. I don't know. It kind of gave the magic back a little bit, you know? So I know it didn't land for everyone, but it definitely landed for me. If anything, I will say Alcremie's probably the best of the dessert fairies. You know what I mean? Like, I like Alcremie way more than Swirlix and Spritzee, even though I know Spritzee was more perfume. But you get what I mean. You get what I mean. Also, just the Gigantamax is just a giant cake. I love that. I love that so much. Just a giant cake for Alcremie. Probably one of the best Gigantamax forms. I just think that's a lot of fun. I really like this. I mean, you could argue that you could have just made this an evolution to Alcremie in general, but I think having a giant kaiju cake is just a simple, pure insanity that you get with Pokemon that I just adore. Oh, is it already time for the best Pokemon in Galar? Cool, let's go. Yay, it's Phalanx, everyone. Yeah, full disclosure, this Pokemon got me to buy the game. I forget where I saw it for the first time. I want to say it was the video on YouTube that was, I think it's called like, Please Be Polite, They're Crossing or something. Wait, what's it called? Let me do the actual name of it. Yes, it's called Please Be Patient and Let Them Cross. I want to say that was the first time I saw Phalanx and it convinced me to buy the game. But, oh man, I love Phalanx. Phalanx is so great. I think a lot of people like Phalanx too, but I really like Phalanx. Phalanx is like top 5 Pokemon for me. Might be in the top 3, I would have to figure that out, but legitimately, I love this little guy. Or little guys, rather. Because it just fulfills so much about what I love with Pokemon. Like, it's cute, it's kind of cool when they, like, put their helmets on and, like, go full formation, you know? And I also really love, like I said, I love it when Pokemon aren't based on, like, animals or specific things. And I know people are going to say immediately, it's like, well, it's actually based on, like, the Roman battle formation. It's like, look, I don't care. I know that it has, like, an idea there, but it's not Roman soldiers. They're just little Kirby enemies that are dressed like that, and it's really cool. It's so fun. And come on, the animation of them marching in unison is so, like, perfect. This thing is just perfect. I love Phalanx so dang much. I was, like, distraught when I got Sword and Shield, and then I learned Phalanx was a late-game Mon. Like, I was like, come on, man, just let me have something. It makes me sad, because I do wish Phalanx was better. It's usable, but it's not that good, and I thought it would be okay. I mean, it even has a signature move called No Retreat, which is pretty cool, but it's not as good as you'd expect it to be. I don't know. I kind of was hoping for a buff with Phalanx for Scarlet and Violet, but it didn't get that, sadly. And I do hear the argument that some people think it should be bug fighting, which I think could be neat. I mean, it definitely looks like a Pokemon that could use Mega Horn. But yeah, let's just talk about what Phalanx is rather than it isn't. And I think Phalanx is pretty perfect. I love him. He's fun. Or I keep referring to Phalanx as a he when it really is just a unit of Phalanx. Now, I feel like I'm kind of cheating here, because I'm going to show some fan art, and I'll credit it. I'll put the link in the description, do not worry. But there's this very famous little fan art thing that was going around on the internet of a hypothetical Gigantamax Phalanx. And it's one of those things that you just look at and you're just like, why does this thing not exist? It is just too perfect. It looks like it could be in game easily. And ever since seeing it, I'm just like, what a loss it is to not have this thing actually exist. I don't know, man. It would have been perfect. And I don't know. I hope to see some more love for Phalanx in the future. Maybe in like a new ability or something. But I would love to see Phalanx again for sure. Phalanx always has a place with me. He is one of my bros. They're one of my bros, or some of my bros. Gosh, it's so hard talking about this thing. Things! Pincurchin. Otherwise known as, I'll take what is not an Alolan Pokemon for $500. Sincerely, I can't be the only one, right? I keep looking at this thing, and I always think that it's from Alola, because it looks so much like Pyukumuku, and I get them confused. Like, I have to always remind myself that, no, this thing is a Galarian Pokemon, so I always mess that up. Either way, Pincurchin, I think he's fun. He's a little fun electric type. I think he learned Zingzap too, right? I want to say that, which is a pretty good move. Either way, yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about Pincurchin. I mean, if you want a sea urchin thing that's electric, here you go. It's a pretty simple design. I would love to see a plush of this thing. I do wonder how they would tackle the spikes, because usually you could do okay with spikes, but these spikes are so long that I don't even know how you would make them work. Yeah, either way, not really much to say about Pincurchin. And I won't stretch it out, so let's move on. Guys, look, it's Snom! I love Snom. He's such a cutie. I kind of like that they just shamelessly were like, okay, let's take Larvesta and Volcarona and make ice-type versions of them. I think they land. I think Snom is a little cutie. I really like the idea that it's a little bug that has a little ice body. I think that's fun. I think that's a fun idea. Frostmoth is gorgeous. Oh my goodness, definitely one of the best looking bug types in the series. Like, wow. They wanted to make Ice-type Volcarona and they succeeded. This thing is really pretty. I wish it was better, but that's what you get when you take two of the worst types in the series. Ice and Bug, and turn them into a single Pokemon. But you know what? I don't even care. Frostmoth is perfect. Like, dang, just wow. You could look at that design forever and just be like, it's just so perfect, man. It reminds me of those like moth videos you see online of like the slow motion ones, and you get to see like their wings and how they look. And it really makes you appreciate that. It's like, oh no, moths can look really pretty. And I think Game Freak captured that really well here. Like, it really does, like, make me appreciate them as, like, you know, I don't know, how beautiful they could be. Yeah, Frostmoth really, really lands, though. Really, really lands. Other than battle prowess, it really, really lands. Galarian Darumaka. Yeah, it is interesting. I wouldn't say Darumaka didn't need a regional evolution, or regional variant, rather, but it is interesting it got one. I kind of look at it and I'm like, okay. Yeah, sure, I'll take an Ice Darumaka, why not? I think it does enough. I think I prefer original Darumaka a little bit more, just because the design is just kind of fun. He has that little cheeky Apom smile. And this one, I don't know, it kind of just feels like, all right, you want Ice Darumaka, here you go. Like, it's pretty simple. Like, even with the Ice Cube eyebrow thing it has going, I feel like it doesn't really do enough, but it doesn't really have to. You know, Darmanitan's the one you want to change up. And it does change it up fairly well with Galarian Darmanitan. See, this thing is fun. I like both of them. I like original Darmanitan. I think it was very iconic to the Unova region. And I like this one too. Like, it's a lot more Yeti based. And I think that's really fun. The weird ball thing on its head always weirded me out, but I think it makes it look kind of goofy. But I think this thing was meant to be kind of goofy, so it's alright. I give it a bit of a pass. I think the really fun part of Galarian Darmanitan, though, comes out in its abilities, because both of them are really good. And especially with the cool Zen mode Darmanitan that they made for this. Like, wow, look at that thing. Fire Ice. I mean, come on, man. Fire Ice, that's just really dang cool. Just objectively, that's really dang cool. Yeah, I don't know. Zen mode hit before. Like, it was such a cool, like, thing that Darmanitan could do. It's not really that good, but it was still a cool thing it could do. But yeah, Zen mode Ice-type Darmanitan, I feel like the design was made just so we could get this. And yeah, he's pretty cool. And I like how he is like a snowman with, like, fire just spewing out the side. Like, it's such a weird thing, but it's really cool looking, especially in game. Yeah, these two land. Yeah, I really like that Darmanitan got a variant, for sure. Galarian Mr. Mime. Well, I guess out of the gate, there's a lot to nitpick here. I guess out of the gate, I'll just say I was never really a big fan of just regular Mr. Mime, so the fact that I got a regional variant, I was like, alright, cool. Great, another version of Mr. Mime, cool. I like his little animation. I like that he tap dances. That's really fun. I don't know. It doesn't really land for me. I think I like it about as much as I like the original Mr. Mime, which isn't saying much, so yeah, cool. Good for you, Mr. Mime. I don't know. Okay, I'll just say this because there won't be another chance to say it. I think it's kind of lame that they just skipped Mime Jr. I know a lot of people don't like baby Pokemon or whatever, but I feel like Mime Jr. could have had a lot of fun with an Ice-type theming, and I feel like it kind of got screwed here. Like, I don't know why they didn't make a Galarian Mime Jr. I think that would have been a lot of fun, but they just sort of just skipped it, and it's just kind of lame, honestly. It's like, you didn't have to. You could have done a full family here. Because, as you'll see, we got Mr. Rime. And unlike with other regional evolutions, it doesn't really feel like it's fixing anything. Like, Obstagoon, it's to make Lanoon more memorable. Cursula, it's supposed to make Corsola good. Sirfetch'd, you know, all the regional evolutions. But this one just kind of feels like more of the same. Like, I don't know, I thought it was a chance to make Mr. Mime into like a weird, uncanny Pokemon, into something really cool, but it feels like it kind of just does more of the same. And in fact, like, when I first saw Mr. Rime, I thought it was just like an inspired Pokemon by Mr. Mime, or like a regional version or something. I didn't think it would be straight up an evolution to Mr. Mime. Like, I don't know. Is it just me? It doesn't really feel like it adds to Mr. Mime. It just kind of feels like another way to interpret it. I don't know. Mr. Rhyme never really landed for me, honestly. I do appreciate the theming, though. Basing a Pokemon on Charlie Chaplin was actually pretty clever. So, yeah, but that's the only praise I really have for Mr. Rhyme, honestly. Maybe they should have, I don't know, just put that on regular Galarian Mr. Mime. IDK, bro. Stonejourner. I will say between the two, because it's Stonejourner and Ice-Q for, like, the variants, like the version exclusives. I will say Ice-Q's better. Yeah, Stonejourner never really did it for me. I think it's neat. Basing a Pokemon on Stonehenge is actually pretty cool. It definitely feels Galarian, you know. I like that part of it. But other than that, I feel like that's all that's going for Stonejourner. I don't know if they should have made it more powerful or what. It just kind of feels just like a clump of rocks, you know. I mean, I think it's okay, ultimately. I think it's okay. I think the rarity kills it, though, because the fact that it's not very good and the fact that it's so rare kind of doesn't really give it a presence, because no one is like going like, oh my god, I gotta throw Stonejourner on my team, you know? And it's not cool enough to look like anything memorable. It just, oddly enough, it definitely feels unmemorable, and I think that's kind of doing a disservice to the whole Stonehenge theme. Like, I feel like you could have did something a little bit better with it. Like, I don't know, give it kind of the same abilities as like Garganacl or something. Like, that's how you do just a rock mound, a very memorable rock mound. This just kind of feels like the beta version of that, kind of. Now, Ice-Q is pretty cool. I've always really liked Ice-Q. I know people like to say it's like, it's not really a Pokemon, it really does just look like a penguin, but I don't know, just the dumb ice face thing is enough for me to like it. It's so dumb that I kind of dig it. Now, I will say, I think what they could have done was probably color the body a little bit differently. You could argue that would make it look too much like Piplup, but maybe turn the black to blue. I think that would have made it more unique as a penguin Pokemon, but I think it does just enough. It is a fun little design, and I love his expressions too. The expressions when this thing's ice face breaks are really fun. I don't know, like, I feel like this one was given, like, the love and creativity that Stonejourner desperately deserved. But, yeah, I think Ice-Q lands. I think it lands pretty well. On the side of the fence of, like, liking Ice-Q, I'm definitely on the side that does like Ice-Q. Indeedee, ooh, slight PTSD from playing all that VGC, but I'll put that to the side. Yeah, here we go, it's Indeedee. Are they based on, like... What are they based on? Because I want to say, like, I know, but... Oh, they're based on, like, household deities and ancient Roman religion. And also butler and maids. Oh, okay. How have I never noticed that? Okay, you know what? That actually makes me like them kind of a bit more. Because I always thought they were kind of just like Wooloo, but standing up. Like, I feel like this is what I kind of wanted Wooloo to be, like more of an idea. I like them enough. Like, I think they're neat. They definitely look like Pokemon, which I can appreciate. And having a male and female version of them really helps. Like, I really like it when Pokemon get male and female differences in appearance, because it really does add to what the Pokemon is and makes it feel like a lived-in version of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I want to say I appreciate that this thing is good. I don't know if I appreciate it, because this thing has kicked my butt so many times. But it's definitely memorable for both design and how good it is. So no complaints here, really. No objective complaints anyway. Morpeko. What do I feel about Morpeko? Well, if you like Pika clones, you might want to avert your ears again, your hearing, because I'll probably be mean to it for a second. I think Morpeko's fine. I think it's on the lesser side of Pika clones, though. Because I think when people complain about Pika clones, this is kind of what they see. This thing is so obviously a Pikachu stand-in, and I don't really like it for that reason. I like Pika clones when they feel like they're trying to do something new with the concept, such as like Togedemaru, where it's like, yeah, you could look at it as like a Pikachu thing, but it's like steel, and it's like kind of going in a different direction, you know what I mean? Morpeko just feels like it's like, hey, look, it's Pikachu. It's got like kind of the same colors and same eyes and cheeks, and it's like, okay, cool, you know, more Pikachu, yay. Now, I think if Morpeko was just Morpeko and that was it, I don't think I would really like this thing. But Hangry mode is actually really funny. I don't really like how much it triggers in battle. It gets a little confusing. But making it into an electric dark type that gets hangry is really fun. And I don't know, like, I love his little sinister mode he goes to. That's when the Pokemon really shines, in my opinion. And full bias incoming. The fact that it's Marnie's signature, it's just like, dang it, I like Marnie. So that means I like her Pokemon. So they definitely worked overtime to take this design and actually do a lot of fun stuff with it. But I still gotta be true to myself here. Morpeko's definitely on the worst side of Pika clones for me, because I feel like they all do something fun. And this one doesn't do enough, at least with the base design. I like Hangry mode enough, but I don't know. I feel like it could have been a little bit more unique. Qfit. You know, I will say out the gate, I do appreciate that they returned to using elephants, because I think the last elephant Pokemon we got was Phanpy, right? Phanpy and Donphan. And I kind of feel like they weren't really. Like, you could argue Phanpy was, but Donphan kind of went in its own direction, which is appreciated. But I kind of like that we got a flat-out elephant monster in this game. Like, that's fun. I think Qfint is just that. It's a cute elephant. And I think it's fun, too, because you look at this thing and you're like, oh, it's like a normal type or something. It's like, no, it's steel. It's a steel type. That's really fun. I think Qfint is pretty rad. I love the color. I love the theming. I love the ability. Yeah, it really lands for me. Copperage is definitely where this thing starts to shine, though. This thing is sick, man. The giant steel elephant, that's so cool. That is so awesome. And it's a signature of Chairman Rose, so that kind of adds to it, where it's like, oh no, he believes in this Pokemon. Like, that's really cool. I also think Peony uses it, right? Yeah, I think Peony uses it too. Huh. Yeah, Copperage is pretty cool. Oh, side tangent. One thing I actually really liked is I liked how this thing became the new Indian elephant. They actually went back and retconned Raichu's Pokedex entry, because I think in the original Red and Blue it said, like, it's like, oh, its Thunderbolt is enough to knock out an Indian elephant. But they went back and just made Copperaja. It's like, its Lightning Bolt is strong enough to faint a Copperaja. And it's like, I like that. Thank you for retconning that, because it felt weird, because it's like, wait, India exists in the Pokemon universe? There are elephants? What? Anyway, Copperaja is cool. The Gigantamax is ridiculous. I don't know if I like it. Like, I don't know. It's oddly enough, I'm usually good with following Pokemon on this, where it's like, we're gonna do a really dumb idea, and it's like, you know what? I like it. I like how daring you guys are with this stuff, but Gigantamax Copperaja doesn't really do it for me. I mean, we all know it. We all know what it looks like. It looks like, let's say it together, Squidward's house. But it doesn't, I don't know. It kind of takes Copperaja's design and just makes it worse. Like, I kind of look into an alternate reality where this was Copperaja, and I just kind of shudder. I'm like, oh, thank God they actually just went more of the elephant route. So I'm not really a big fan of Gigantamax Copperaja, even for the memes. So, yeah, I don't know. Never really landed for me. Dracozolt. Oh, no. I'm getting to these ones. I feel like I've just been too mean in these thoughts and opinions, but here we go with the fossils. Now, okay, how do I address this? So, okay, I'll just say it out the gate. Here we go. The fossils, I know the theme of them, because I think it's like a thing where, what is it, like, archaeologists from the UK, like, didn't put fossils together correctly, so they spliced together dinosaurs by accident. And then later realized that they weren't from the same species or something like that. I don't know the entire thing about that, but they decided to take fossils and base them around this idea. And to the surprise of no one, they look like monstrosities, but not in good ways. Some of them are okay, but I don't think they really look that good. These things just make me more sad than anything. And Dragozolt definitely lends to that. I mean, oh my goodness, like, having the body, like, not part of the rest of the torso, it doesn't look that good. It just looks kind of weird. I saw, like, fan art of, like, these designs when they were actually, like, the real versions of them, you know? Like, you took, like, the electric type here and actually made an actual body for it, and then you took, like, the dragon type tail and made a body for it. I saw fan art of, like, these actual completed fossils, and I sort of wish they existed instead, and these would be, like, other versions of them you can get, but I don't know. It just, I don't really like them. Yeah. I know it's the point, but I don't really like Dragozolt. I will say Arctozolt is better. I think it's because the snow hides the design a lot better, so it doesn't look like it's so unnatural. It still looks unnatural, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't look nearly as bad. One thing I will say that's actually pretty clever is I like how they took the Zolt head and made it that it has a cold, because its body can't handle being an ice type. Again, it makes me more sad than anything, but I do like how clever that is, where it's like, oh god, I'm an ice type, I'm in misery, I have a cold. It's just like, oh my goodness. Ugh. Okay, and then Dragovish. Now, I think the thing is that I like Dracovish enough because it feels like it's okay with being Dracovish to an extent. Of the four, it definitely looks like the one that feels okay with being itself. Doesn't look good, but it looks okay at least. And the thing is that I can't deny it. The fact that this thing was so good helps to, like, it really brings it up in my opinion, because Vicious Ren Dracovish is like one of the best Pokemon in the game, or at least in this competitive meta. But design-wise, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's okay. Ultimately, just based on design alone, I think it's okay. Of the four, I think I don't know. Arctozolt might be better. This thing doesn't make me as sad, so let's just say this one's better. Arctovish. You know, you would think that this one would be my favorite, right? But the fact that its head is upside down, I'm just like, why? Why did you do this? It's so sad, man. I can't. I know I'm a broken record here with how sad these Pokemon make me, but like, jeez-a-loo. Jeez-a-loo. I wonder if anyone actually used Arctovish unironically, because when you first see it, you're like, oh, okay, cool, we finally got a normal, and then you realize, it's like, oh, no, this thing is in pain. So, yeah, Arctovish is, I don't know, it's deceptively a good design, but then you learn it's not really. So, yeah, moving on from the fossils. Duraludon, the Steel Dragon type. I think this is the second Steel Dragon, I think this was made for the sake of having a Steel Dragon that wasn't Dialga. What do I think of Duraludon? I think he's alright. I think as Dragon types go, he's kind of mid-tier, I'd say. He's not as cool, but he's not, like, derpy looking. He's just kind of there. Honestly, I kind of see him more as like Raihan's ace than anything. Yeah, I don't know. I wish Duraludon was a little bit better. I think he's alright, ultimately, though. Like, I wouldn't change Duraludon's design. It's not like Baxcalibur. It's not a complete dud. But I do wish there was a little bit more love for him, for sure. Especially being a Steel Dragon. Like, you would expect a lot more fanfare for Duraludon here. Gigantamax Duraludon's actually pretty sick, though. I actually really like him. I mean, at first, I sort of look at him and I'm like, it's kind of weird how he's just a building? Like, I don't know how I feel about that. I'm like, wait, why did you just become a skyscraper? You're a Pokemon. You're not supposed to become a building. But he does look pretty sick. The lights on him and, like, his eyes. If they wanted to take this and maybe, like, trim some of the edges down and make this just actual Duraludon, I think I would have just appreciated that a little bit more. But as it goes, I think Duraludon's fine. It's not my favorite, but I like him enough. Oh, yay, Dreepy! We're here at Dreepy. Okay, here we go. Because I was getting to the point with pseudo-legendaries where I'm just like, do I just dislike all pseudo-legendaries, like the new ones? Because Because Sun and Moons didn't do much for me. The whole, like, Jangmo line, I thought they were okay, but they definitely didn't have, like, the fanfare of the old pseudo-legendaries. And then, I don't know, like, I even look at Gen 9, and I'm like, do I just not like Excalibur? Like, do I just not like fun? But then I forget about Dreepy. Dreepy exists, and I love Dreepy. He's cute. He's cute. He's kind of like Applin, like my version of Applin, where you took kind of the worm and made it a really fun little derpy boy. And I think he's just really cute. Like, essentially, wait, is he Ghost Dragon? He is Ghost Dragon. You essentially made a Diet Giratina, which is really cool, because Giratina had the Dragon Ghost type exclusively. But this is like the perfect Dragon Ghost. Like, I love how they made a little wisp that is a little dragon. That's so fun. But the design starts getting masterclass once you start, like, evolving it. So, Drakloak is also really cool. I love his head, I love his expression, and I love how the Dreepy's riding him. I think that's so cute. And I also really like how Drakloak has, like, the generic ghost, like, haunting pose, like, ooh, you know, with the hands. That's so fun, man. That's so fun. And then we gotta get to the boy, the icon, the moment, the one and only Dragapult. One of my favorite pseudo-legendaries for sure. This thing hits all the marks of what I want in a Pokemon. Is it cool? Yes. Is it cute? Yes. Is it unique? Yes. What's the idea? It fires off torpedoes with its head that are Dreepies. Like, what? And they're completely fine with being fired out of the torpedo slots. Like, it even says in the Pokedex entry, and I love this, where it says, apparently the Dreepy inside Dragapult's horns eagerly look forward to being launched out at Mach speeds. I mean, come on, man. Come on. This is just like, this is perfect. This is a perfect design. And I also find it weirdly satisfying that the tail becomes ethereal. They didn't have to do that, but they did. And Dragapult absolutely lands. Yeah, one of my favorite pseudos. I would love to cross-compare the pseudos at some point to see, like, who's my favorite, but, like, Dragapult is right there. It sucks because that's one of the reasons I can't have Appletoon on my Sword team, because Dragapult fulfills that for me. Like, oh, man. And then I will just say, what an absolute loss it was with Scarlet and Violet, how you don't get to see the Dreepies getting fired out of its head anymore. That was so much fun in Sword and Shield, when you use the attack and you actually saw the Dreepies get fired out of its head. The only thing that could have added to that, if they had a little expression that was like, yay, as they get fired out, that would have been like, it would have been too powerful. So I get it. I get why Game Freak stopped, because that would have been too powerful. But man, Dragapult, this entire line is just peak. It's so good. And yeah, I love them. Absolute 10 out of 10 in design. Wow, it feels so weird we're at Zacian. Okay, here we go, Zacian. Because this is how I definitively feel about Zacian. I'm putting it into concrete thoughts on the internet, and I can't go back on it. What do I feel about Zacian? I will say I'm warmer towards the Pokemon since its reveal. I think having it split into two forms was actually very smart. Because looking at it originally, it did look a little ridiculous that the dog just had the sword in its mouth. And I just thought that was just part of the design. Like, I just thought that's like, you know, that's what we were doing. But the fact that you made the form called the Hero of Many Battles, which is Zacian without the crown, and the sword for that matter, I can look at it and be like, oh no, this looks like a Pokemon. This very much looks like a Pokemon. Not a very inspired Pokemon, but it looks like a Pokemon at the end of the day. The crowned form makes it look like something legendary, so I really appreciate the attention to detail there. So I've gotten warmer towards Zacian. I think I don't know, I've learned to really appreciate the design. It's not one of my favorites. I think Koraidon, Miraidon are absolute steps up, but yeah, I think Zacian's pretty cool. I think she's pretty cool. Is it a she? I forget. I don't know. I thought it's like implied that like Zacian is a she and Zamazenta's a he, but I don't know for sure. That being said, is this Pokemon like the most broken Pokemon ever? I don't know. I don't know if Mega Rayquaza was better or whatnot, but it was just so fun seeing this monstrosity of a Pokemon with Intrepid Sword and all that attack and Behemoth Blade, it was just like, what were you guys thinking? You power scaling is dead. You finished Pokemon. Oh my god. Good old Zamazenta. I think it's kind of the same argument with Zacian. Now, I think I was warmer towards Zamazenta because the shield doesn't look as jarring. Because I'm like, okay, you know, you could just say that's part of his body and I'll believe it. But the fact that they gave it an uncrowned form as well, I appreciate that. Again, I just like that the hero of many battle forms that you look at with these two legendaries, they look like just Pokemon. They look like just natural, cool Pokemon. And then you add items to that to make them heroes. Like, I think that's really cool. And the fact that they actually rise to the occasion to defeat Eternatus, like, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. That is absolutely how you do it. I also really like how your rival gets the opposite legendary. I think that really adds to it. It seems like they're trying to go the route these days of, like, legendary Pokemon not being, like, deities, but more just being, like, famous. Or just Pokemon that are just really strong. Because Zacian and Zamazenta don't really feel unique. They just feel like they're famous Pokemon from the past that you can have. Like, I like that. I like that approach a little bit more. It makes me feel more comfortable about having one instead of just like, all right, I have Groudon, bow to me, you know. I don't know why I said Groudon. I could have literally said Arceus, but whatever. Eternatus. What do I feel about Eternatus? I know when this thing first came out, I wasn't that crazy about it. Because I think the other, like, trio threats are better. You know, like, the Krozma actually suited it pretty well. How it was, like, how it stole the light of Alola. Like, I thought that was kind of unique. And then you had Giratina, and then you had, Kyurem. Eternatus just kind of felt like, okay, we need a thing to fight, kinda. And I don't know. It's very weird. I will say, it is cool that it's a poison dragon type. I think that's a fun legendary type. I looked at some stuff online and, like, a lot of people say it's like, yeah, they made it a poison type because we never had a poison type legendary before. It's like, oh, you're right. We've never had a poison type legendary. That does make me like it more. It's interesting that it's like a space virus. I don't know. I feel like Eternatus needed more lore. I think there needed to be a little bit more exploration with Eternatus, because it kind of just feels like it comes out of nowhere, and it's like, okay, and then we're done. I don't know. Especially with the fact that they said it's like, oh yeah, all the Dynamax stuff is because of this. It's like, oh, okay, well, there you go. Here's Eternatus. I don't know. I think it's good as an antagonist, per se, but it doesn't really do enough to be like a super iconic Pokemon for me. That being said, Eternabeam is one of the coolest animations I've seen in Sword and Shield, so props to that. But other than that, Eternatus doesn't really land for me. Also, I know it's supposed to be a space virus, but I would have loved it if this thing was an Ultra Beast. This thing just has Ultra Beast energy to me, absolutely. And it would have been a cool way to tie it to Sun and Moon instead of just forgetting about Ultra Beast forever for some reason. And now we're at the DLC, so we're gonna do the DLC mons. There's not really many from here, but yeah, let's take a looky-loo. Here we are with Galarian Slowpoke. So, I'll just say it, I think Slowpoke has a fun design, you know? There's a reason why everyone loves Slowpoke. It's just a fun little boy. And Galarian Slowpoke is just Slowpoke with a yellow head. And it's just like, alright, cool. So, I think it looks a lot better when it evolves for obvious reasons. But yeah, the regional form is just kind of like, okay. It didn't have to be different though. I'm pretty okay with it just having the yellow head and I'm like, okay, cool, this is Galarian Slowpoke. So, I don't know. I'll just say it's like, yeah, Slowpoke still rocks. All these years later, it still rocks. Galarian Slowbro is my bro. I love this guy. I really love Galarian Slowbro. I like the idea that you took Shelter and latched it onto a different part of Slowpoke's body, and that made it evolve differently. That is so fascinating to me. Because I did think that in the past, where I'm like, well, you know, you had it established that if it bites onto the tail, it becomes Slowbro. And if it bites onto the head, it becomes Slowking. If it bites onto the arm, like, what would it become? And it's like, yeah, it becomes a gun. I think Galarian Slowbro rocks. He has a really fun design. He's actually my favorite of the Slowbros, I would have to say. He's pretty sick. And Poison Psychic is such a fun type combination. This thing absolutely lands for me. I really like him. Also, his ability is really fun. He has like a built-in Quick Claw. That's so interesting. I don't know. I think they really killed it with this regional variant, though. They did a good job. And now the reverse side. Galarian Slowking. I've never really liked this thing at all. Okay, I mean, out the gate, again, I don't like how you just took Slowking and just put Shelter on his head again. I thought we were past that because Slowbro got it on his arm. And I mean, you could say it's like, well, what were they supposed to do? Put it on its leg? And I'm just here kind of like, maybe, I don't know. I mean, dare I say, I feel like you could have put it on its nape and then made it like kind of a Shelter cape thing going on. I think that would have been kind of cool. Nape being neck. Again, Attack on Titan fan. But yeah, Galarian Slowking never really did it for me. And it kind of sucked too because when Galarian Slowbro came out, there was obviously a lot of fan art for what a Galarian Slowking would look like. And I remember really liking the fan art. But when this was revealed, it was just like, oh, that's what it looks like? Like the eyes kind of look weird and like, I don't know, it just doesn't do enough to be different from regular Slowking. Again, I'm just like, you could have did something different. Like, it's kind of surprising they just kind of went for the low-hanging fruit here. It almost felt like they were obligated to make a Galarian Slowking, and they just kind of went like, all right, here you go. And it's like, aw, but Slowbro was so creative. I don't know. It could have been better. Kubfu. What do I think about Kubfu? I think he's all right. He is an all-right little boy. If you wanted to make a little karate bear, here you go. It's Kubfu. I love the relationship you have with your Kubfu in Isle of Armor. I think he's cute. I think he has a lot of fun expressions. I love the little arc of evolving him into Urshifu. I think it lands. I think it's pretty cool. But me personally, I haven't really connected with him. I never really found him like that cool where I'm like, oh my god, Kubfu, like the second coming of Pikachu. I don't know. Yeah, he never really landed for me. I don't know. Urshifu. I think Urshifu's kind of like Kubfu again, where I'm like, it's fine, it's there, it's fine, I don't know. It kind of feels like Ursaring, but you, like, did something really bad. He's like, all right, you know what, I'm putting on the headband, I'm coming after you. I will say, the fun part to Urshifu is the variations. I think there is, like, fun stuff you can do with Urshifu. Like, you got the single strike style, you got the rapid strike style, which have different typings and moves that you could do. I think that's a lot of fun. The Gigantamax forms are pretty cool too, where it gets like the red and blue with the white. Like, those look really rad as well. They really put a lot of effort into Urshifu. I don't really know the consensus on Urshifu though. Do people like it? I don't know. I never really looked into it. I got him and I was like, I like him, but I don't know, I just kind of moved on after that. Zarude. It feels weird to see Zarude here because I'm just wanting to jump to Crown Tundra immediately. But yeah, Zarude is next. Oh, what do I think of Zarude? I think he's fine. He's got a good design. He definitely looks like a grass dark type. That's for sure. He looks sinister as heck. Kind of just like with every mythical at this point, I feel like there could have been more done with him, but more in a story aspect. I feel like there was definitely ways to make Zarude a little bit more memorable, but as it is, I feel like he kind of fails as a mythical, just because I feel like you could take this design and, I don't know, think of like a hypothetical pre-evolution and then throw him into the jungle of like Sword and Shield and be like, all right, this is like a grass dark like monkey you could get. It's just like, yeah, it's about right. So, I don't know, Zarude's never really landed for me that much, which is hard because, like, my favorite type is dark type, so I don't know. I guess I could say as a dark type expert, I guess, that this didn't really land for me. Regieleki. It's kind of cool that we got a Pokemon just based on electricity itself. That is very fascinating because all the Pokemon up to now, from what I understand, I'm pretty sure they all were. They were all based on animals that could channel electricity. It was kind of cool to just, like, cut out the middleman. It was just like, no, let's just get a Pokemon that is just made out of electricity. That's actually really cool. And the fact that they made it from a Regi is pretty rad as well. Like, I like that you could see the golem part here that was created by Regigigas. And, I don't know, like, it's kind of rad. it's kind of a rad idea, especially, like, I'm looking at it, it's called the Electron Pokemon. It's like, that is cool. Like, I really like the idea that it's like, well, what if we slapped eyes onto a Thunderbolt and called it a Pokemon? And I feel like with the Reggies, you could do that, because they are uncanny, they are weird, and I think it really landed here. Regidrago is hard. I like it, but I don't. Okay, I will just say, I love the design. I love the design. I really do. I really, really like the design. He's fun. I love how his arms become a dragon mouth. That is fun. And I will never say no to another Reggie. I love the Reggies. Like the little golems. Like, they're so fun. But I kind of look at Regidrago and I feel like it's sort of random. Like, I'm like, Regieleki I could get, because I'm like, okay, that's actually kind of a cool idea, slapping eyes on a Thunderbolt and calling it a day. Regidrago, though, it's like, did we need another dragon-type legendary? I mean, I know this is kind of like a diet legendary you can use, and there's not, from what I remember, there's not a lot, like, of diet legendaries that are dragons, so maybe it's created for that reason. But I don't know, it's kind of weird to base a Reggie on a dragon. Like, I feel like you could have did something else, even if it was like fire or something. Like, can you imagine that? Like, fire with the same theming of like Regieleki or something? That would have been a lot better. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I still like Regidrago. Again, I will never say no to a Reggie, and I love his cry. Dragon's Maw is also really cool looking. It becomes the dragon mouth and it just shoots like a beam. So it lands for me, but I just objectively look at it and I'm like, I feel like we could have did something different. I feel like it's kind of a wasted idea for a second Reggie, you know what I mean? Maybe Regieleki just like peaked too much for me. Oh, we're back to the regional variants. Oh my god, I almost forgot. Galarian Articuno. Here comes unpopular opinion. I never thought Articuno was that good. I always thought it was just kind of there. Now, I think the thing is I think the anime sort of carried Articuno for me, because the whole point of Articuno was that it's like, oh, it's like beauty, you know? So it's like beauty personified. And the anime did make it look very beautiful. But in-game, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, there's Articuno. It's the ice bird. So I think what I really like about Galarian Articuno was it just felt like a lot more charisma for Articuno, where it's like, hey, let's take that beauty and make it kind of a jerk, where it looks and feels superior to you. I really like that. I think it's a lot more fun than the original Articuno is. Not to mention, I love how it has a signature move where it shoots laser beams out of its eyes. It's like, what? Plus, all the memes that came from that were amazing. So, yeah, I think Galarian Articuno is just flat out a step up from the original. Unpopular opinion, maybe, but I definitely think that. Galarian Zapdos. This is going to be the one where I think I feel equal. I think Zapdos' design has aged very well. It looks... I'm gonna say this a lot today. It looks like a lightning bolt that became a Pokemon. But the thing is, with Zapdos, it's clever because it is a Pokemon, but it looks like a lightning bolt because its wings are shaped like that. So I really like the original Zapdos' design for that reason. And Galarian Zapdos is pretty cool too. He's got really cool colors, and making it into a fighting, flying Pokemon was really fun as well. I kind of like how they went full Chocobo and just said, it's like, all right, well, what about Galarian Zapdos is reminiscent of Zapdos? Like, well, let's just make it really fast. I kind of like it. I kind of like that idea. And it's cool because, like, well, for one, the Galarian birds, shinies, are, like, top tier because they just become the original colors. But I really like when you make it shiny Galarian Zapdos, it really just looks like Zapdos without the wings. Like, I actually think that's really rad looking. So, yeah, Galarian Zapdos absolutely lands. But to be fair, I think they're both equal. Like, Galarian versus original, I think they both slap, honestly. Galarian Moltres. This is going to be a very interesting one. So I think right off the bat, I will just say, I think they tried to make a Moltres that ages better. Because the original Moltres looked pretty cool back on, like, Game Boy. But I think the problem with original Moltres is that people sort of looked at it and then saw a rubber chicken after a while. And it sort of ruined Moltres for me, because it really does look like a rubber chicken that's on fire. And I think this one has a lot more seamless fire to it, that it looks a lot more intimidating and cool and like a fire spirit, you know, that I think the original was trying to be. So I think for that reason alone, I think I prefer the Galarian one. I will say, I think it's a tad too edgy. Like, this thing is really edgy. It's a dark flying type that's like, it looks like evil personified. So yeah, it's a bit too edgy for me, but you know what? I think it still slaps. I really love the shiny one though, because I think that's like the best of both worlds. Like you get that Moltres fire, and then you get Galarian Moltres' like more seamless looking fire where it looks like it's part of its body. I think that's a great like midpoint between the two. A bit of a confusing entry, I know, but that's my consensus on it anyway. I do prefer the Galarian, but I think it kind of goes a little bit too hard. Glastrier. We know what this is all about. We know the whole Calyrex fusion thing. I think it does just enough. Yeah, it's an ice horse. It certainly is. I think it looks fun though. Like with the hooves made out of ice and with the helmet made out of ice. It does land. I think it does look pretty cool. I do think Spectrier looks a lot cooler though. Like making the hooves disconnected from the rest of its body looks really rad. And I like how you could see kind of the trailing off of like the tracks. That looks cool too. The hair looks cool. I think between the two horses, I think this one looks better. I think Calyrex looks better riding Glastrier. But I think this one, I think Spectrier just looks better on its own as a design. I think it slaps. I think it slaps. Calyrex. So, I think Calyrex is... I think between the two, like, mascot legendaries of the DLC, I think Calyrex is better. I think it was just a lot more of a unique design rather than Kubfu. Because I feel like you could slap Kubfu on anything and just call it a day. Like, it's just like, yeah, it's just, I don't know, a bear Pokemon you can get. Calyrex had that strangeness to it. That it was just like, this thing is weird. Like, what is this thing? And learning about Calyrex was definitely the most fun in Crown Tundra that I had. And I really liked how you were just helping him out. Like, I do like that. Again, I think story just adds a whole lot to it, for sure. But it worked for me. And I don't know. I have a lot of nostalgia for Calyrex already. Like, I look at it and I'm just like, oh yeah, I remember when I helped you. Like, that was fun. That was a fun time. People joke about the big head. I think it's cool. I think it's kind of a cool idea because it really does make it look like it has like a giant crown. So that's pretty rad. Yeah, riding the horses though, I think Ice Rider looks a lot cooler. Something about Calyrex's design really complements Glastrier really well. So I much prefer Ice Rider, to be honest. But Shadow Rider's not too bad either. Not too bad either. I think the colors are a lot more conflicting, but I think it looks pretty good as well. And then we move on to Oh, wait. Oh, there is no Gigantamax Calyrex. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, no, that doesn't land. And yeah, that's it for all the Pokemon in the Gallery. Oh, excuse me guys, I actually asked Dialga to freeze this video for me because, as you guys probably can tell from the mic quality, this was not recorded the same time as when I was doing this because I'm nearing finishing this video and editing, and I realized that for some reason, I have no idea how I forgot, I completely skipped Galarian Weezing, which is embarrassing because it's not even just like, okay, it's just cool, whatever. No, Weezing's one of my favorite Pokemon, and yet I completely forgot about Galarian Weezing, so whatever, let's just talk about this. Okay, yeah, Galarian Weezing is just really, really dang cool. I couldn't have asked for a better form of Weezing, honestly. Weezing has always been one of my favorite Pokemon, Weezing and Coughing, and they were kind of dead on arrival in Gen 1, but Poison types just kind of sucked in Gen 1 in general, but having it finally get something after all this time of being mediocre was just so gratifying. The fairy typing being added to it, the stupid little design they gave it, which is really fun. Again, I wish they made a Galarian Coughing. I saw all the fan art with it, with the bowler hat and the little smoke mustache, and it would have been amazing. Really sad they didn't do that. And also, I love Neutralizing Gas. Neutralizing Gas is one of the best abilities, and it's also really cool, and it completely put Weezing on the map. And what I really, really like about this is that they gave it to regular wheezing. So if you want to use regular wheezing, you can. You could use it. It gets neutralizing gas too. So yeah, never gonna make that mistake again. I have to talk about Galarian wheezing. I can't just not talk about it because it's amazing. Anyway, my error has been corrected. And I'm just now realizing I did not talk about the Gigantamax forms for the ones we got. Like the Kantomon. I'm gonna have to include them later. Ugh! Question of the day. Who is your favorite Pokemon from the Galar region? Special thanks to my top tier patrons, Mr. Alamode, Wheezy, TerrorXD, and Chansey.